Oh, I think there are people. I've just seen David. Right, okay, hello. Yes. Oh, Christ. Right, so I'd set it all up on my phone and then realised I did it wrong. So I've had to do it again, which is why the thumbnail's got a picture of a drawing which is all scrunched up because I hit the wrong button. So, yeah. Right. Hello, everybody. Right, what I'm going to do quickly, because originally I was going to set the chat up so there'd be no, well, set up the live stream so there'd be no chat until for like 15 minutes, and then I was going to do the Q&A thing I done for members and stuff in that first 15 minutes, but it turns out you can't do that. You can't turn the chat off and then turn it on. So I'm just basically going to hide the messages on the screen, and then I will do the Q&A, which should take about 15 minutes, and then I'll turn the chat the messages back on the screen again. Basically, that's what I'm thinking. I'm trying to be fair. So I'm just turning the messages off the screen now. So I'm not ignoring people. I'm doing the Q&A first. And I'm not ignoring people. It's just I've had to take it off the screen, so I can't see anything. So all I can see now is myself. So you'll have to take my word for that. So I've got 15 questions to go through, which were mostly from YouTube channel members, a couple of Patreon questions as well. Some of them are in depth, some of them are not so in depth. So the first one was from Handbrake Bob. This is not in any order. This is just, well, it is actually in an order. It's in an order that the spreadsheet put it in. Handbrake Bob has just asked, Hubnut is having problems with Betty. Am I in hiding? Yes, I've locked the doors. Genuinely, the doors are locked. Lomofo 3531 says, what is the dodgiest bodge you've had to fix up for a customer, and did they admit to doing it? I haven't actually gone through any of these, so I'm answering these as I go. Dodgiest bodge. I mean, you do get something every, I don't know, you get a few a year where people have done silly things, but the worst one probably has to be the TVR with the fiberglass chassis. Fiberglass outriggers. The guy had bought the car from a prestige car dealership, and they'd either, I don't think they'd bodged it, but I don't think they'd inspected it as closely as they said they had, and he bought it and it had warranty on it and everything like that, and then he brought it in here because he went to jack it up and the jack went through the chassis. He brought it in to have outriggers, and then when I got on the ramp I noticed that the outriggers were made of fiberglass with welds that were recreated with sealant and then covered in wax oil. So that one went to court. Well, no, it didn't go to court. The dealership settled out of court the day before. So yeah, that was the worst one. He didn't do that, so he bought the car like that. In fact, he had no idea. He drove the car around the Nürburgring and then found that out a couple of weeks later, so he wasn't very happy. Mr. Man Buzz says, is there any make of car that I refuse to work on? No, I don't refuse. I refuse very little. I don't like the word refuse, but the only thing I don't, if people ring up with, funny enough with TVRs, if it's a Speed 6 or an AJP8, like you get in a Cerberus and they want engine work done, I just say to them, there's no point. I can't do it as cheaply as other people, and they've been doing it for longer. They know their way around them better than I do, so you might as well take it somewhere else. That's not where my specialties lie. So yeah, don't refuse anything, but I advise people to take some things somewhere else. So if it's a job I haven't done before and it's a complex job, there's no point me doing it, because it's going to cost me money to do it. So it's going to be bad value for a customer, and it's going to be bad value for me if I reduce that and treat it as a loss leader. There's no point. So you might, if there's other people out there that can do it. I mean, and then with another question, similar sort of thing actually. What? Aslandama? You obviously know your cars so well. Are there any jobs you wouldn't tackle? Yeah, TVR Speed 6 engines. I can't find a local garage that will change the timing gear on my gorgeous Alfa Romeo 166 V6. Been in storage now for many months until I can afford to get it to a proper specialist up north. To be honest with you, that kind of falls into the one before. I wouldn't know my way around an Alfa, and I had an Alfa V6 once, but not very long. I wouldn't know my way around it enough to you know, I've got so much to do. I'm so buried in jobs I've got to do. I wouldn't go taking something on that I didn't know. Yeah, the best thing is with specialists. Use the specialists. You know, use them. Save up and get it somewhere proper. Someone who's going to look over it, and you know, if they take it apart, there'll be other things they notice at the time that also need doing. Things that's going to save you future grief. So yeah, there's plenty of Alpha specialists out there. So Patreon, Susan Buckley says, what is the best stroke worst car purchase you've ever made? I mean, I don't, best and worst, I'm guessing she means. Well, the best would have to be my BX, I suppose, my 16 valve, because I've had that since I was 20. So that was nearly 20 years. Oh God, it was nearly 20 years ago. So yeah, that's probably the best one. Is it on the wall? Oh no, it's not. Oh, it's up there. That's not it on the ramp. That's a different BX. The worst car purchase I've ever made. I think, you know, in a way, no, should I say the C6, because I'm trying to sell it. No, it kind of is. The problem with the C6 is I've broken my golden rule. My golden rule is you shouldn't like your daily car. You should not care about it. You should just keep it going. And I do like it, and now I'm stuck. So you shouldn't do that. So that's probably the worst purchase I've done. I shouldn't have done that, because it was only going to go one way. I wasn't going to dislike a C6, was I? So that would probably have to be the worst one, because it's got me into a muddle now where I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to have to sell it for not a lot of money, and it's going to go somewhere and probably get scrapped or mistreated or something like that. So because there's other cars out there that are, you know, people who want a mint C6 would buy. They would spend £5 or £6 grand on a tidier one, rather than buying mine for 2.5 or something like that, because they think, well, I don't have to spend money on it, I might as well just buy a low mileage one to start with. I don't think it's quite as simple as that. I think mine's had a lot of things done on it that they might not have had done. There were a lot of things that don't get mentioned that fail, that I've put right. Things like the trim falling off the boot lid. I've sorted that, and I've done it in a way that it won't go again. And I don't just mean I've bonded it on. I've actually made like fixings and things. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to yeah, best is the BX 16 valve, and worst, but not because it's the worst car. Worst was the C6, because it was the most ill-advised thing to do, really. Although it has got me going on YouTube a bit. I've got a bit of content out of it, and I've got to have one, so it depends which way you look at it. Back on YouTube members, Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV. And Breathe. If you had to, oh, this is a question that keeps getting asked, and I don't know why. If you had to own one of Ian Hubnut's cars on his current fleet, excluding Betty, what would you own? Well, A, why do you think you have to exclude Betty? Because I wouldn't choose Betty anyway. I would have 2CV. Because I quite like to have a 2CV. Well, I don't know, I've never driven one, but I would think I would quite like a 2CV. Yep. Yep. 2CV. What's he called? Ellie. David Chandler, who can hear this but can't see it. He'll get that, don't worry. It says, you've talked about selling the C6 on and off, but if you do sell, will that be a regret in a few years when your personal fleet has a gleaming SM, an authentic Clement, and a C6 shaped hull? It's a good question. I don't think it will, because I think if I've got a gleaming SM, I'm not going to care about any other car at all. So, and I've never held the C6 in the same regard as the SM and DSs and things like that. I would say the C6 is the best of Citroën, certainly in the last couple of decades. But if you compare a C6 to an SM, the SM is on a different planet. It's like the C6, it's all superficial, like everything is done to appease people who don't look too deeply. Whereas with SMs, the engineering on them is absolutely bonkers. Like some of the little things you find when you've gone like, well, I don't, because I haven't worked on it. But if I had worked on it, I've taken another one apart. Some of the things you find are just like it's aircraft level engineering. So yeah, I think the C6, I do love it. I really do. I love the look of it as well, but I don't think I'd regret it if I had an SM running. In fact, it's the fact I haven't got an SM or a Clement or whatever on the road that probably makes it harder to get rid of the C6. So E-Chats says, mid-battle with the Beast. No, this is one I misunderstood. He said, mid-battle with the Beast, what was the most misdiagnosed issue that could have been a simple fix? Do you know, actually, that would be, I don't know, there's loads. I've got bad memory. I think that could be the C6, because when I got the C6, the suspension didn't work properly. It just said suspension faulty, and it used to go into limp mode, which meant it went firm. It didn't go rock hard, but it went firm. And people have been spending lots of money at various specialists having the suspension reprogrammed and this, that, and the other. And it was a £9 bracket. It was bent. And so it was a simple fix, but it could have been a simple fix for them but you know, for some reason the people who were trying to fix it didn't spot it. I'd never been under a C6 before and I spotted it. So yeah, I don't know, because I looked at it on the computer, plugged it in, and the computer values were out on the driver's front wheel. So that would probably be, it's not misdiagnosed, it's just missed, but it would have been a simple fix. So, and to be fair, the guy who ended up buying it off, would he have kept it if the suspension wasn't throwing a faulty thing on the screen? Possibly. Might have been one of the things he ran away from, because, you know, you would. Jim Darling 5335, halfway through these. Jim Darling 5335, Darling. A customer walks in, asks you to build him an RV8 for his TVR. Well, I'd say go somewhere else first off, because I'm not really an engine builder. I'd be like, go to one of the places who build engines and warranty them, because I would. But for the purposes of the question, because he's written it very well, he looks at you sternly, cocks an eyebrow, and nods at his hand, holding a blank check. And I'd say, a check? It's 2023. Who uses checks apart from DVLA? I care not what it costs, but it must be ready in 3 months. I don't think I'd want to work in those conditions. Too much pressure. You have limitless access to blocks, heads, cams, exhausts, inlets, and ignition and fueling parts. What do you build for him? Go. Do you know, he'd be very, very upset, because if I had a blank check and limitless access to everything, I'd build him an iceberg diesel version of a Rover V8, because I've always wanted to see one. He would be really pissed. He would not be happy. Yeah, that's what I would do. Because, I mean, you know, otherwise you probably, I don't know, 4.5 cross-bolted block. One of them trick ACT inlet manifold things with the double plenum. That kind of thing. Yeah, I'd build an iceberg diesel. Patreon, Jeff Longley. I think, I don't know, I'm going to potentially do this service, the guy who did do it. I think he might be the guy who donated the glove box for Clement. Serious question. What platform works best financially for you in terms of being a member, Patreon or YouTube? That's a very good question, a very serious question. I don't know the answer because I'm disorganized and I don't know which one works out better. They're both set quite low. They're just an optional thing. The most financially beneficial thing is PayPal because like some people just, I'm amazed people do it, to be honest. Some amazingly generous people. I've had messages, people saying I don't want to use one of the ones that takes tax. Basically, I don't want to use one that funds YouTube or something. Can I just send some money for one of the cars? And I'm like, to begin with, I really didn't want to do it. I feel a bit weird now, but some people, yeah, it's not big bucks, but yeah, everyone just wants to like chip in a little bit. So, and I keep a record of everyone who has. So I will find some way of honouring that. Whereas Patreon or YouTube's like an ongoing membership thing, which, to be fair with me, you don't get value for money for. I answer your questions every now and then. That's about it. So, and he needs a follow-up question, which I'm guessing is not the serious question. Do I use GT85 because I'm addicted to the smell? Yeah. Kimo Hitala. I don't know. 5359. I have a question about BX Series 1 and 2. Interior is different, and there are some external styling changes, but what changed under the skin? Is the Series 2 more refined or quieter? That's a bit of a big question for now. I would say, yes, the Series 2 is definitely more refined and quieter, but it wasn't just a crossover. Like, you can get some Series 2 cars that are more like Series 1. In fact, some Series 1 have got nicer trims. So like Series 1s have more parts in the interior that are carpeted, whereas in the Series 2 they'd just be plain plastic. And also like the A-pillars and things like that, the trims in the higher spec Series 1s are actually nicer. So it looks like they cut some costs pretty early on. But the Series 2 the dashboard's so much nicer to use. The Series 1, I know it's sacrilege to say it, that like the BX dashboard, I know the Series 1's cool and everything. It don't work as well as the Series 2. Series 2 works far better. The stalks just work better than having to go like that. So, I mean, it's cool. I love it. I love the Series 1, but the Series 2 looks and works better. So, as a model, yeah, the Series 2 generally is more refined and quieter. Although none of them are particularly refined and quiet, I wouldn't say. Low Mofo, another question. He's getting his money's worth. Low Mofo 3531 has said, "What's your favourite BX special edition and why?" Oh, he's asking more than one question. Wow, he's yeah, okay. What's my favourite special edition? Haven't really got a favourite special edition. I quite like, I suppose, Hurricanes, because they've got their own type of, they look quite nice in the green. I'm not going to make this a BXE Q&A, but yeah, Hurricanes. I don't know, really. I quite like, I just tend to like, I don't have certain models, really. The Pilot's quite nice. Is it Pilot? Yeah, Pilot. Don't mind the Pilot. The Preview. There's the Preview. There's the Leader. The Leader's a basic one. Yeah, there's loads. And oh, here we go. He says, as the BX registrar, which I am for the Citroen Car Club, because I am a geek. As the registrar, what's the survival rate like for Leaders, Meteors, and whatever that green one was? That was the Hurricane. Survival rate for Hurricanes, they weren't in big numbers anyway. They were a run-out model and they were kind of higher spec, so they weren't many to start with. GTIs are seriously rare. There's like 3. Turbo diesels a bit more. It's probably about 15, something like that. So they're quite rare anyway. Leaders are probably rarer, I would think, because people just throw the basic ones away. Meteors are the most common by far, because the diesels and the 1.6 petrols, but there are things out there, like there's a TXD Meteor Auto, which I think there is only one. No, TGD Meteor, sorry. And I think there's a couple of Meteor automatic petrols. So Meteors are the most common out of all of those. But then to be fair, if you really wanted a Meteor, God, I'm fancying the Dominoes now. If you really wanted a Meteor, you could just go and buy a TXS or a TXD, because that's what they became. So the Meteor sold so well that Citroen went, well, we should just make that a normal model. So they did. They called it the TXS or the TXD, and they did a turbo diesel version of it. So Mukluj, I think that's Lewis. I think that is. He says, other than the SM, which I own, what's your money no object dream car? Could be one to restore, or heaven forbid, just drive around in without having to work on. Do you know, it would be that. Lexus LFA. That's what I would have, because that's the same kind of thing as an SM. It was like, it's a very different car to an SM, but the principle is the same. They're basically, the big wigs went to the engineers and said, right, just go nuts, just make the best thing you can. And if you're Lexus, you can make pretty good stuff. So I would say Lexus LFA. Quite like NSXs, the Japanese sports cars, supercars. You weren't expecting that. Yeah, NSX. Yeah, LFA. Or a Toyota 2000 GT. It was always Lexus LFA, SM, 2000 GT. They were always at the top of the list for me. So, Mr. Manbuzz, would I have any interest in driving viewers' cars? Depends what they are, and giving them a review. I don't think I'm very good at reviewing. I mean, I do the driving videos, but I can't talk and drive at the same time. It's really difficult. If I ever found myself in Ireland, I'd be more than happy to let you have a spin in my yokes. Eggs? Assuming then, I think it might be a word for cars. Assuming they're not broken at the time. I can sympathise with that. Thank you. Yeah, no, I don't know. I see people like Ian doing the, and JM doing like driving people's cars and just giving her, just putting videos together on the road. I get really stressed trying to do it. So I think that would probably be my dream thing, driving different cars and doing that. But then the problem I've got is A, I can't do camera in front of people, and B, so that I'd have to basically say, right, can I have your keys? Right, now go away and give me your car. And the second thing is I'm too honest. I'm just too blunt. I say it, and then afterwards I think, oh, that was a bit mean. But in my head, I'm thinking of everything like just mechanically. I'm not, if I thought his hand was like a pig, I'd just say a hand was like a pig, and it could be someone's pride and joy. But to me, it would be like me saying a hand was like a pig isn't detracting from how much they love the car. How much they love the car, that's the main thing. What I think of it is irrelevant. So in that regard, why would you give it to me to review it? Don't know. I'm not really selling this, am I? And the last question isn't actually a question. It is a statement by Mighty Cat Mods, and he says, or they say, because I don't know if it's a he or a she or a cat or whatever, a chiz is a swizz or a swindle, as any fool know. Wise words. I think we can all take something from that. Right, so I've done my Q&A. That took longer than I thought it would. But I'm going to download the live stream when it's done, snip all that out, and I'll put that back out for the people for the members who aren't here, because none of them might be here. So better turn the chat on and see who's here, hadn't I? Let's see if this worked. Did this work? Right. I can take that off the screen now. I can see the chat. Right, so I'm just going to start doing the chats from now. So I've got, I'll tell you what, David Chandler has said, for those recently joining, I can't see the chat at the moment. He doesn't mean himself because he's blind. He means me because I turned it off. But we had the same thing. And he'll turn it back on for him after he does the questions. He's nailed it. That's exactly what I did. So the first thing someone wrote after that was Stephen S. Paul, and he said, hello from a place where old cars don't rust, but we crush them anyway. Wow. Really? Malta? Cubeitis says, wow, finally become a Patreon just now. Thanks for all the nice content. You're welcome. Thank you for being a Patreon. Did all Citroen XMs have passive rear wheel steering? I've no idea. Maybe, probably. It's not really. It's not really rear wheel steering. All that happens is when the car leans. Hang on, I've got to turn this. I've got this. I'm on my screen here. It's really annoying. When the car. There we go. When the car leans, all that tends to happen on XM. Well, no, I don't know if XMs do it or not. Xantias do. I don't think XMs do. I think the first one was the ZX. Maybe the Series 2 XM got it. It's nothing. All it is when the car leans, the deflection in the bushes makes the wheels follow the front wheels slightly. It's slight. So it's not really wheel steering. It's just slight deflection of the rear axle bushes. I mean, it works because they handle well. But I don't know if XMs did, to answer your question. But the people who like XMs really like XMs, so they'll be able to answer that. Mr. C, do you get a lot of help sorting videos out before posting them, e.g. from Mrs. Kitch? No, I do it all myself. I do get help from her from the point of view that she lets me get on with it, which takes up a lot of time. It really takes. I don't know how people do this for a living. I mean, I don't know how I do what I do for a living, to be honest, but yeah, it takes a hell of a lot of time for not a lot. And I watched a video earlier on this week. It was Laurie's Mechanical Marvels video, and he was doing like a chat to an audience at one of the railways he was at, and he basically said like, he referenced his mate who I think might be JM, and gave some numbers on what he might be earning on YouTube every month, and I was like, I need to charge him more for the BX if that's what it is. But that lorry guy is way bigger than I am, far bigger than I am, and he was like, yeah, no, I couldn't really do this like for a living. And I was like, yeah, and he's right. Unless you make that jump into big time, you couldn't live off it. So the amount of time it takes to do it, it's a very poor return, and really you have to do it for enjoyment. That's really all you can do. And then if it becomes anything, and that's why I think me personally, I just stay true to myself and just do it however I wouldn't do stuff for the clicks. I just do it because I quite fancy making that video. If I'm doing things for the clicks, I'm doing them very wrong because I'm getting less and less clicks, believe it or not. So I get indirect help. Foxanne's Follies. Yoke is just the Irish word for thing, or a word you can't think of at the time. That is a good way of living. That's a good way of doing things. Just say yoke. The word won't come to mind. I just say yoke. I like that. Hi from the Netherlands, and another BX owner says Ricketic 65. Shane W, favourite Nirvana song? That's a random question. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. I forgot I was wearing that. It smells like Teen Spirit. No, it's not. Slither, or I quite like Heart-Shaped Box. Was it Francis Farmer will have a revenge on Seattle? Isn't that one of them? I can't remember the actual name of it, but yeah, I like that one. What's the one that was number one on the Black album they did? The one that got released a few years ago. You Know You're Right. I really like that. I really like that one. So, Territorial Pissings, I quite like that one as well. But you can turn that one up and just look like an absolute moron. But the drumming in it is insane. So, have I ever worked on a Triumph for Tess, says Duncan Letts? No. I've worked on Spitfires, so that's kind of the same thing, almost-ish. But never worked on them. But they're pretty cars for Tess. Well, pretty. Yeah, they can be. I think they sound nice. And of course, those engines are in some TVRs, or to the 2.5 version of that engine is in some TVRs. So yeah, I've indirectly, a lot of TVRs use old TVRs, the 80 stuff use Triumph bits. So, but no, I haven't worked on other tests. Hello from Seattle area. I'm another SM owner, says Roland Farah Faraha Orwell. That's a posh name. Nick Hag. Unfortunately, some specialists are more special than specialists. I would say, yeah, no, I could go on and on and on about it. I watched, I watched a video the other day, and it was a video by Drive Tribe, which is not the sort of thing you think I'd watch normally. But it was the fella who does the Mike guy, the Scottish guy. He genuinely likes his cars. He's genuine. I honestly believe it. I watched a couple actually drive Tribe recently. There's one where Ben Collins went back to Le Mans with him. There's a road trip and there's loads of sponsored rubbish in it, and they're blathering on about a Camaro or something. I wasn't interested in that. But Ben Collins is talking about doing laps at Le Mans, which I was just like loving that, taking it all in. And the other video was they went to see the TVR Speed 12, the Cerberus Speed 12. The Cerberus Speed 12, which went up for auction. I think it was auctioned. I think it went over £500,000 because it's basically the only legit full size complete original Speed 12, like original is, and that's how the factory were going to make it. And it was rebuilt by a guy I know called Brian Lawfield, who runs Lawfield Engineering, which is in the old TVR factory. And he's the man. I mean, he knows so much, and he's like the proper TVR workers. They're really down to earth. Like if you go up there, I remember the first time I went there, way before this place existed, and it was like, I'm gonna rock up my TVR. Yeah, I'm gonna pull up in my Chimera. I'm gonna take pictures of it outside the old factory, and all the people who used to work there are gonna come out, and they're gonna get hankies out and weep and that. No, they're just like, oh, another one of them. So yeah, they're all indifferent about everything. They're like proper Northern, proper British. Like, yeah, Speed 12. Yeah, that's all right. It's a bit rough over the bumps. That's that sort of thing, you know. Anyway, he done a cracking job. He rebuilt this car for the fellow who owned it. And the fellow who owned it, he's now gone into business with him and taken over the paint shop that was next door. And they were interviewing the fellow who owned it, who was selling it, because he's also got another Speed 12 that Brian, I think it was like a half-built car, and Brian's finished it off with an Aston Martin engine in it instead and whatnot. That one's purple. And he was talking about it, and he said, so you've gone into business, doing a body shop. And they have, because I remember when they did it. I remember when Brian bought it, and they said, he was talking to me about it, like everything that was going on. And he said, this fella who he's with, Abbott fella, I don't know what his first name was, and he absolutely nailed it. He goes, yeah, no, there's not really any profit in the body shop, because like if you want to do something perfectly or properly, you can't charge it. You can't charge what it takes to do it. You know, you can either sort of do it profitably or you can do it perfectly. You can't do both. And that was, I as soon as he said that, I was just like, thank you, someone else has said it. So yeah, I always see some specialists out there, and if they've got like a big posh place, and like blatantly making tons and tons and tons of money, I wonder how thorough the jobs are. That's the way I would say. So yeah, 16 Valva, it's the Steve. Hello Rich, love the t-shirt. Favourite album and song from it? This is an album? Is that the one that's on In Utero? I can't. Mate, my memory's terrible. I went through my favourite songs just now. You've probably heard it already. Everyone's probably 500 minutes on from where I am. It's the Rival, Whiteland Rest. Yeah. I don't know why I said rival. It's just like, yeah, he's a rival because they're like in the motor trade and we're about the same kind of success, if you like. But the difference with Whiteland Restorations and me is Whiteland Restorations are getting cars painted and then getting them on the road. And I'm looking at them, scratching my head, making jigs. So, Deviate Fish, hello. Someone here called Star, who looks like a Jack Russell by the look of it. Hi Rich, I love the content, keep up the good work, thank you very much. Later XMs did have it, there we go. Working my way through your videos, good stuff, thank you very much, there's enough on there now. How do I make a living? I struggle, man. I really, yeah, that is a bad subject at the moment. Basically, yeah, working on customers' cars, there's a BX up there, customers BX. There's a TVR over there, which the customer who owns that has given me permission to do videos on, and that one's going to be difficult because I haven't got any decent footage. I've just got like snippets on the work camera phone, which is a crap phone. It was cheap, so the video quality won't be very good, but I'll do like an intro one on it, and it's got an amazing story. It's got an awesome story behind it, and it's a one-off car. I mean, like you won't see, like trust me, you will not see another one like that. There's some TVRs I work on and stuff. There's a fly in there. It's been in there for like 3 days. So yeah, mostly working on cars, but yeah, it's starting to be a little bit more Citroen-y now as well. Which, to be honest, I'm actually starting to open up to a little bit more. I was always like holding back a little bit on it because I didn't want to mix business and pleasure. I really don't with TVRs. Now if I go to a car show and I see a TVR there, I just think, Whereas I used to be really excited by them, so it's kind of like it sucks the love out of it a little bit. And I'm worried about that with Citroens, but I don't think it can. I think the Citroen thing is just too ingrained in me. It's been a lifelong thing. TVRs, I only knew about TVRs. Got into TVRs when I was in secondary school, like Clarkson videos basically, and reading about them in What Car and that. And then when I met my wife, she was mad into them, so that kind of like kicked it up a gear. But the Citroen thing is like ingrained, like SMs, DSs, BXs. It's just like I don't think I could lose that. It's working on people's cars. I don't really enjoy, to be honest. I don't like taking money off people. So, Kimo Hitala, did I write? I think I did. It's done your question earlier. 4:30 a.m. here. I could say I got up just for this, but that would be a lie. I'm catching a flight to Sydney. Wow, that's a long way. It might not be. You might be in New Zealand. So, in fact, no, he probably is. I thought it was Finland or something. Looking at your name, but maybe it's not. So. Has everyone liked this live chat yet? I don't know, Grumpy Talk, but it's a good question. Which of the Citroens you've owned has the best ride? Says, you guys are seriously going to have to get some names like John and Alan and Ted and Bill and stuff, because I can't, these names, seriously. I mean, there's one there. Shane. Duco? Which of the Citroens you've owned has the best ride? I can easily answer this. It's Clement, and I've only driven around the yard. It's Clement. It's on a different planet. The ride on that car is on a different planet. Everything before that, I'd say, I've not driven a GS before. CXs are a little bit smoother than BXs. I wouldn't. A properly sorted BX, and not a 16 valve or something, like just a properly sorted, healthy, basic one. CX is a little bit smoother than that. XMs, I would say, a bit smoother than both. I would actually say XMs are smoother than CXs. Everything from there kind of started to go down. Xantias are good. They are smooth, but the ride on cars started to, because they had to have well, there's a video coming out about all this, but I think the DS is by far the smoothest. But Clement, I've also found, has comfort spheres fitted because they're fairly recent. And the other DS that's here, which isn't a DS, it's a D Special, that's got normal spheres on it. And that's still very, very smooth, still the smoothest. But Clement is slightly smooth. I have a feeling Clement's going to make me sick when I actually drive it. I think it's just going to be like boating around down the road. But it is, it's a cliche, but yeah, it's Clement, it's a DS. So, hi Richard, DS series is epic. Thank you. Yes, it's epically depressing. Lithium, a good one. Have I seen the Swiss guy who rebuilds DSs and SMs? His results are beautiful, and I follow him despite wishing him harm. That got dark, didn't it? This is Mark Stott who said this. No, I haven't followed that, I'm afraid. Do you know, when I watch stuff on YouTube, I tend to watch... what did I watch today? I watched Hubnut. I actually watched Hubnut today, the Alpha said. And I watched... something else? It's not always car related, it's all sorts of stuff, so... My dad's a paint sprayer and he's a perfectionist. Can agree. Yep. Yeah, perfection is a killer of profits. Whiteland says. Well, they know it. I mean, I've seen the paint on some of their cars. It's good, but it's not profitable. So, which is probably why they want to start doing it on YouTube, YouTube only. Like, you know, if you do it on YouTube and you're big enough, you could get paid just working on your own cars, and then you can be a perfectionist because you can film it all. So, yeah. Favourite Renault, says Shane W. I had a Clio Williams in the 90s, an awesome car. Favourite Renault? Do you know, I've never owned a Renault. Clio Williams is a good shout. A very good shout. I don't know. I don't really know much about Renaults. 21 turbo, but that's a rival to the BX 16 valve, isn't it? You can't. When it was either car and motor, I think it was motor, before they merged with Autocar, they did a group test with the BX 16 valve, Renault 21 turbo, and the 405 MI16. And the MI16 was brand new, and they had to drive to France to get that. And they also decided to pick up the Renault 21 in France. And the only car they picked up in the UK was BX 16 valve, which I'm guessing they got from the press office in Slough or something. And they drove over to France. They drove to the Renault place to get the 21 turbo. They tried to drive in the car park, and the security guy wouldn't open the gate because they were in a Citroen, which is fantastic. That is absolutely brilliant. I love that level of pettiness. So yeah, I would say maybe the 21 turbo just for that story, but I don't know. Michael Van, he's got very strange is the wrong word, eclectic way of writing comments. Dear reader, dear sir, no one's ever said sir to me before without saying you're making a scene afterwards. Simpsons, I don't come up with that. Can you build power steering in a BX without? Yeah, you could just plumb it in. The only one you'd struggle with potentially is a 1400 because none of them ever had it. So you might have some issues, but yeah, you could. You could buy all the hardware and plumb it in. It's not a big deal. The subframe's the same. The steering column is slightly different. You'd need the column, you'd need the rack, you'd need the hydraulic, you need all the pipe work, flow diverter valve. Some components are different. So cars that have power steering have. Do they have a different dozer? I can't remember. There's something that's different. But yeah, it could be done. Would you need to? Not really. I've got one without power steering. It's not that bad. So, White and Restos, we're all in it together. We are. James Batchelor says, did you enjoy the BTCC at Thruxton? I did. I always enjoy the BTCC. That said, it's a bit boring. It wasn't amazing. Do you know, it says something when you go to a race and the support series is more entertaining than the main series that's there. But I mean, it's Thruxton. It is just a bit of a procession, really. It's a really fast. I'm sure it's an absolute hoot to race on because of the speed. But yeah, it's like I don't think I'll bother going next year. The queues to get in are insane. It's always. We went there and we went down this road, and when we got right up to Thruxton, having seen that the A303 was just solid, all the way to Thruxton, we got there and the security guards had closed the road and said, no, you got to go on the 303, which meant you had to turn, go back on the 303 the wrong way, driving past the queue that you have to get into, in past the Picasso this was, right up to the junction, turn around, come back on into the same queue that you went around, that you did your navigating to avoid. And there was no pre-warning. It's not like there was any sign saying no access to Thruxton, down this road, go somewhere else. It was just like you got all the way there, pretty much to the perimeter of the track, and there was a sign going, no, road closed, you've got to go the other way. So I wasn't happy about that, to the point that I bombed it down the outside of the A303 and then saw a gap last minute in front of a Porsche and thought, I'm just going to dive in there because he's not going to try and cut me up. Old Picasso versus shiny Porsche. He's not going to make a scene, is he? So yeah, I just had enough. But the racing, I suppose that was more entertaining than the racing? Maybe. I'm always I mean, yeah, it's at the moment the Ford Focuses are in a different league. It's kind of like F1, isn't it? It's like when you get one team that's just on it, and everyone in the sport goes, "Oh, but you should enjoy it. You should appreciate it." When one team and one driver is just on it that well, you should just, you know, be proud that you were there. And I'm like, I don't want to be. I want people to fight. I want drama. I want people to race. I don't want to watch one person absolutely bossing it. So I was cheering on Josh Cook. I think I'm probably a Josh Cook fan, and he didn't get anywhere near it. So yeah, yeah. So I think no, I don't know if I'll go next year. I think Brands Hatch is where it's at for BCCC, and then track like Knock Hill, Croft. I'm thinking about Croft, but it's a really long way away. But yeah, so I did enjoy it though. But the thing I enjoyed more were the minis, the mini sevens and the mini mig. I know someone in the mini miglias. I got a friend, Graham, who actually had the recovery truck that took Hilda home from Goodwood. His son, who's about my age, Scott Kendall, started on pole actually because it was a reverse grid. That's not a dig. He just his cars at the moment. His car's not quite as quick as some of the other ones because the rules. Motorsport is a bit of a corrupt thing, really, unfortunately. But the rules moved about a bit, and it's not necessarily how good you are; it's how fast your car is. And but he runs a garage. He runs a company, which he's moved into the Midlands, prepping minis, and he preps some of the other cars on that grid. So I kind of knew someone out there. So it was like he's been in there a few times. We've had him on the rolling road and stuff. And so I was sort of cheering him on, and he had a teammate in the sevens, which was Connor O'Brien, and he was doing really well. And well, I think some shenanigans happened, but they didn't get reported. I think he got a bit of a, I think he got brake checked actually, and damaged the car because the radiators are in the front on those race cars. They're not on the side like a normal Mini. So yeah, so that was more entertaining. Was it because I knew someone in there? Yeah, maybe, but yeah, no, that was good. I enjoyed the minis. Shame that's the only track they're doing. I've spent a lot of time talking about this, haven't I? Can you tell I like motorsport? Hello from Spain, Grim Wriggler, Matt Rutter. What other car channels do I watch and non-car channels? Hubnut. I have to, don't I? I have to do it every now and then. Car channels. I don't. JM sometimes, depending what car he's driven. Sort of interested to know his thoughts because he drives a lot of cars. So I've been watching Drive Tribe stuff. I tend to watch stuff. I've started watching a guy. I watch Rocket Powered Mohawk. I love Rocket Powered Mohawk. He would go down like a lead balloon on Twitter. Oh, no, he's on Twitter. But yeah, he's a genius. That guy. Yeah, it's a yeah. People who know what I'm talking about will be like, oh wow, okay, yeah. He's been banned a few times, I think. What else was there? I started watching one today, Mike Seaborn Racing. I'm subscribed to it. He's got races Jags in classic racing and does some cool little videos where he just puts the camera in the car and then has little like snippets and captions at the bottom. So that's quite interesting. Non-car channels. I watch loads of car channels. I mean, yeah, I can't remember. To be honest, I'm subscribed to so many. Every time Katie does something, Wrench and Wench, I'll watch that. I think she's really good. Whiteland, I watched some Whiteland ones recently. There's loads. And then non-car channels, it'll be like, I like Tifo Football. I don't know. You just end up watching random stuff, don't you? So maybe the mega jig should be called a yoke, as jig is also Irish. True. Sorry, I'm late. Fed the dog. I answered your questions, Jeff. Sorry, I'm late. Fed the dog. Making dinner. What have I missed? Is the SM finished? Finished and sold. It's gone. Oh wow. Flight from Brisbane to Sydney. Is Brisbane in Australia? I suppose, yeah, you'd need a plane to get across Australia. It's quite big, isn't it? all of techs and testers, I'm so far behind. This is stuff I've already talked about like 10-15 minutes ago and forgotten. All of techs and testers are like that. You grow up loving cars, you start working on them, the enjoyment goes, and we hate customers, cars, and customers. But that's a bit mean. I don't hate customers. Well, a couple. Not current ones, but yeah, I know what you mean. This is very niche and very, very low numbers, so I don't get that so much, but I can imagine working in a normal garage you would. Simon K, who is a knobhead, says, "Good evening, what have I missed?" He's a moderator still. He's got a little spanner next to his name. It doesn't mean he's a spanner. It means he's a moderator. That'll be from the live stream, the 24-hour one. Of all the hydromatic Citroens, the DS is by far the softest riding, I know from experience. Yeah, I would agree. Do I agree loving old Citroens, which I do, puts the SM into BDSM? I love costs in many ways. I don't know, because I've not really driven it. I don't. It's just sat there. So for me, it's been really reliable because it's exactly the same as it was. So yeah, the DS is turning into a bit of a Clement. I mean, I wouldn't have taken it on if I'd have known. That's not the guy I got it off's fault. He didn't know either. It's just the way it's gone. It's really, yeah. And now I'm too committed. So. Am I going to Hubnut Social, and are you going to do your own socials when you have merch? Says Grumpy Talk. Yeah, we were joking, weren't we? In the last one, we said the socials are going to be called the anti-social. I'm not going to Hubnut Social. I've got nothing planned like that. I'm not a social person face to face particularly. I'm the sort of person who dives into a shop to avoid seeing someone I know on Facebook. I've got an announcement. That's not an announcement. Yeah, it's kind of an announcement. I've got an announcement on an event that I'm actually organising. It's not an up and down thing. It's actually to do with the Citroen Car Club. At the Citroen Car Club National Rally, which they still call them national rallies. It's a bit 1980, isn't it? I don't think next year is. I think next year they're actually gonna. I think next year is a bit of a shake-up, and it should be quite exciting. But this year, at the national rally, we've come up with an event called BX40 UK, hashtag BX40 UK, and it's basically a meet-up where, because the BX is 40 this year in the UK, it's 40 everywhere else last year, but this year, or any right-hand drive countries, I'm guessing, we didn't get it till 1983, so it's this year. It's 40, so there's going to be a bit of a BX shindig, and I'm organising it, well, with other people. So yeah, when that's horrendous, you can blame me. So yeah, I'm doing that. Merchandise thing. Well, do you know, I joked and said when I got to 10,000 subs, I would do merch, thinking I'd never get. I didn't think I'd get past 1,000, so I thought 10,000 was going to be well safe. So to get where I have, I'm quite surprised. But it's kind of like it's got near 10k, and it's made me go, oh god, I'm gonna have to do merch. But now it's kind of like stopped near 10k, so it's like you're about to be punched in the face, and the guy's got you, and you're up against the wall, and his fist like that, and he's just paused, and you're like, can you just hit me or let me go? So yeah. But it looks like I might have to do something along those lines. Thing is, I can tell if I've said something in a video that upsets people, I lose subscribers. So I can see when it happens. Renault 21 Quadra, yeah. I have, Chemo says, I have slightly flat front spheres at the back of my CX Prestige for a smoother ride. If you have flat spheres, the ride will get firmer. You need more gas for a smoother ride. But it depends. I mean, CX Prestige, isn't that the one with long wheelbase? So that would make a difference. I've not driven one of those. Yeah, for me, the ones I've driven, the smoothest BX I've driven is probably my Mark 1's pretty good. I think my dad's GT might actually be slightly smoother. But yeah, the CXs I've driven, I've never driven a CX and gone whoa and felt blown away by it. I've thought they're good, but they're not a huge jump over a BX. They're both good, but the BX handles a lot better. Whereas with a DS, it's a massive jump. It's like the DS is so much softer and smoother than anything else. How's the love for other Frenchies, says Tagora 2600. Well, I'm guessing you've got a Talbot Tagora, or you like them. I don't know anything about those. Peugeot, Renault, or anything else I can think of. Matra, quite like Matra. Ligier. Peugeot, I don't like. I went off Peugeot a bit after I read about the SM, because it was basically Peugeot. My upcoming video about the SM is going to be why everyone's wrong. They keep saying like the what was it? The oil crisis killed the SM. The engine was rubbish, and that killed the SM, and all this sort of. And it's rubbish. It wasn't. It was none of that. It was Peugeot. Peugeot got control of Citroën because Citroën threw all their eggs in one basket, being the rotary engine. That all went belly up. They ran out of money. Peugeot had to take them over because Renault couldn't, because they were kind of state owned and it would look a little bit iffy. And they didn't like the SM. And they didn't like the DS. So the first thing they did was take the SM out of production. They were like, no, that's gone. Because Peugeot's conservative, weren't they? They're really like plain and keep it profit. So yeah, everyone's like Peugeot. Everyone thinks of Peugeot as the sort of fruity, funky, hot hatch kings of the 80s. They weren't like that in the 70s. It was like conservative. It was like a French version of somewhere between Ford and Volvo. So it was just like real simple cars, tough, reliable, mechanically like nothing too out there. Before that, actually, there were some cars. Like they did the first car that had the convertible folding roof. So yeah, they go through phases. But at the time they owned Citroën, Peugeot were like, nah. Like properly like, nah. And yeah, so I kind of like, I can't get over that. But I've had a 106 Rally. I love that. I love 405s. I think they're great. Quite like 406s. 306, I'd have the 306 over a ZX or a Zara. Easily. Wouldn't even have to think about it. So I can't claim. I think for normal cars, more recently, I'd probably, maybe Peugeot is a bit more. Not from the noughties, not anything after 2000, up until the 508, the most recent one. I would just, they got the mojo back a bit now, but everything from like 2000 to 2019, 2020 has been a bit meh. So where are we at? Only Citroën I've ever driven is a 2CV, and that was terrifying on the motorway, and the gear change was a nightmare. I think the this is Zoinks. I think the gear change is supposed to be quite good on those, and it's either a case of you either need to get used to it or it has to be set up right. But I think the gear lever like pivots like that, and it clicks really nice. So, but yeah. I mean, I've never driven a 2CV, so you're beating me on that one. I can't imagine it's anything like a DS or anything like a BX or a C6 or whatever. They're all quite different in a way. So, Jasper has been said in early videos, my hair is the best. Thanks. So it just, seriously, my hair is just something that is there and grows, and I have to cut it occasionally, twice a year. Have I recovered from the H&P Evans? Have I recovered from the DS discovery? Which one? What, the sills? Do you want to know the best bit? I'm going to have an old banana. The best bit is I've found the same thing on the other side at the back. So, yeah. What annoys me is that I haven't done a video yet about Clement and Clement's past. Clement's got a bit of a story actually, but I don't know all the info yet. Clement had a hell of a lot of money spent on it. I don't know the details. I don't know anything like enough to go, it was then. But I think Clement had about 25 grand spent on it not long before I got it. I mean, it's got a new steering rack in it, and that's 1,500 quid's worth when it's all said and done. The engine seemed quite good, although I think that my clutch problem is something quite sinister at the moment. But all the hydraulics were good. It rode well. It lifted properly. And it's had a lot of work done on it. But I don't know if the garage. Yeah, I mean, basically, it's been bodged quite badly. So, Tab Bear, did any UK BXs come with aircon, either as standard or optional? Some BXs had it as an option. 16 valves, GTIs, turbo diesels. I don't know about turbo diesels. It has to. Sorry, I'm eating. I'm like, I've not had anything since about 2. It has to have an alloy sump. So yeah, some did. I've got an aircon kit at home, which I'm a full aircon setup for a BX, which I'm going to put in my red one eventually. My BX doesn't have power steering and I don't miss it. It says Ricketic. I like that. Ricketic 65. I do prefer them with power steering. I'm not saying I don't think they need power steering like some people make out. I think if you can't drive a BX without power steering, then yeah, maybe go lift some stuff for a bit. But the gearing on the steering is quicker. It's only 2.8 turns lock to lock, whereas with the non-power steering it's about 3.5, 3.6. So a 16 valve, for example, turns in quite quickly compared to a non-power steering car. So it's nicer to drive them. Be a little bit less feel through the steering, but who needs feel through a steering in a BX? I mean, it's not a car for that anyway, is it? So, but yeah, I mean, trying to think of a pragmatic way to put it. If you love your car and you like the way it drives, it doesn't matter whether it's got it or not. It's kind of the way I would look at it. Most of them do have it. So, Isaac can. My name is John. Isaac is my son. Okay, John. Hello, Isaac. Zebra Bella. A woman! Yay! Love your show. So I think it's good when women get involved. Because it's a bit of a sausage fest otherwise, isn't it? Love your shows. My husband had a GS 1220 Club. Nice. He now has a 2CV and an Acadian. That's the van, isn't it? 2CV van. Christ, I've been on over an hour already. Yeah, I like a GS. I'm not really into GSAs. I don't like all the mods they did on the GSA from the GS. I didn't like every single thing they did, other than the boot, I suppose. They got rid of the stupid boot and put in a proper hatchback. But yeah, I prefer the GS. Earlier the better. So yeah, GS 1220 is quite an early one, isn't it? Jeff Longley, find a niche, stick to it. What's up with Audrey, by the way? Audrey is the other DS that's here. I'm not going to go into details on Audrey because that is for Alex to do, aka Scroff. And I believe he's going to do YouTube. But you didn't hear that from me. So, James Batchelor's come back in with the BTCC chat. Mini Miglias and 7s were fantastic to watch. Low power and drafting gave great racing. Good replacement for Janetta Juniors. 100%. All the Janettas are boring except the Juniors. The Juniors are great because it's just like loads of kids going mental. Mind you, you watch the Porsches, the 911 Carreras, the first race that was on in the Porsches, the fella who gapped everyone after about 2 laps, like 6 laps in, he's pulled out 5 seconds. He was 16. In a 911 GT whatever Carrera, like 500 horsepower 911. He was in Janettas. Was it Janettas or F4? He was in one of them a couple of years ago. My kids would know. He was in one of them a couple of years ago. And he just turned up and started taking the piss. And just drove off. And like, can you imagine? Well, I think one of my kids, I think it was My eldest, when he was, well, eldest, he's a minute older than his brother, but he was next to me, and I think he said something like, can you imagine like how those guys are behind him? Like there's probably some 40, 50-year-olds who paid an absolute fortune to do that racing, and some 16-year-old has just hopped in it and driven off. So the racing's not amazing, but yeah, Robert De Haan was his name. He's just insanely fun. It's like Max Verstappen levels. He's just gone. He's in a different league. The minis would be a good replacement for Ginetta Juniors. The problem is, I spoke to Graham about this. I said, like, everyone I know, everyone who was around me at the time was Thruxton. I was at the complex. It's just absolute carnage. Just everyone's there. It's just, yeah, got no room at all. But people were loving the minis, and everyone online in the groups were loving the minis. And I said to Graham, like, the love for the minis was huge. Not the BMW minis. They're normally a bit, yeah, the proper minis. People were loving it. But he said, yeah, the problem is it's like 10 grand a go, like each lap. Each event is 10 grand a go just for the club, for the society, not including your race licenses, not including your your costs and everything like that, just to do it because of the TV. So yeah, there's a lot of good motorsport to watch that's not on telly, and I'm finding that out more and more. So I shall be going to tracks more and more. There's there's some really good stuff at Silverstone a little while ago, MX5s, C1s. Yeah, so, but I think the minis would be a great replacement for Ginetta Juniors, but I wouldn't expect it happening. So, 16 Valve, just driving back from France on my last mission. He's driving a train, by the way. He's not driving a car. He's driving the big grey train that goes over there. Would you ever make the jump if circumstances were favourable and move over there? I love France, you should probably guess, and I like the people. I like the way they do things. Not everything, but generally more. I'm more French than British, I imagine. My missus wants to one day. She wants to move, even if it's just for a year. But the problem is the cost of speak to the guy next door, and the costs to do it just for a year are insane because of the tax. Because it's not a fair place to live. But I just love I mean, you go over there. I love the pace of life. It's like 9 in the morning and there's no one around. It's like there's no rush hour. It's brilliant. Regards slightly flat spheres at the back of a BX. It's softer because the front spheres have higher pressure to deal with. Or to start with. I don't follow. You might be right. I don't follow. It's too late in the day to try and figure that one out. How was the Picasso? I filmed a video with Picasso yesterday. Found some stuff. Banana is my favourite fruit. I don't like fruit. I don't eat fruit or veg. I'm just Ron Swanson in real life, which means it's amazing I've lived as long as I have. But I do quite like bananas when they go that old. Don't like them when they look green or bright. There. Your summary of what killed the SM is spot on. I know. Citroën spent all their money on the rotary program for the GS. It wasn't just for the GS. It was in general. It was they were like, they set up a factory and they were going to they thought, oh, we're going to be selling these engines to everyone. We're going to be killing it. Because the rotary engine is the future. Yeah, they went bust because of the rotary engine pretty much. Just think about the oil crisis killing the SM and that making Citroën bankrupt. People who say that are not thinking at all. You're talking about a car they sold, what, 13,000 of them over 5 years? That's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. Do people really think that if an oil crisis kicked in and they went, oh no, we're not selling 1,500 SMs anymore, we've only sold 800 this year, that's going to make a massive difference? It makes none. And the other thing is with Citroën, I'm giving away all my content here, but I'm going to put in the video. The other thing with Citroën, right, so that they start struggling to sell SMs, right? because of the oil crisis. Fine. Two problems with that. First off, when the oil crisis happened, SMs were available in America. In America, a 3-litre SM, which is what I've got, is considered a small car. That's a small engine. So if you wanted to save money in an oil crisis, you'd get rid of your 6-litre V8 and get yourself a 3-litre European car because it's much more efficient. Secondly, when they didn't sell them in America anymore, they couldn't rely on that, obviously. But you are talking about Citroen, who they were selling the SM, but they were also selling, in the middle of an oil crisis, 2CV, the Diane, Mahari, the GS, which had a big development cost, admittedly, but that's a 1200cc. In fact, weren't the basic ones 1000cc? Am I making that up? Was there one that was 1000cc? Citroen made tons of really economical cars. So for every SM sale they lost out on, they probably would have made up. I don't know. I mean, the 2CV's best year for sales was something like, it was in the 70s. I'm pretty sure it was in the 70s. I know the DS's was 1970, weirdly, which shows how far ahead of time it was. But the 2CV's was late as well, if I remember rightly. So there's loads of reasons why. The best place to get all this information, actually, there's a guy who wrote, I've said about it before, Accidental Death of an Icon, a book called Citroen SM, Accidental Death of an Icon, goes into this in good detail with good facts. I'm just going off the top of my head. That's worth reading. But you're right, they did spend tons of money on the rotary program. The GS was a big development cost. The SM was a big development cost, but the SM used DS suspension. There was a lot of parts that got carried over, so it wasn't like new. The GS was new tooling from scratch. The CX was largely all new tooling from scratch. The SM used a lot of stuff that they already had on the shelf. So, they bought Maserati, for the engines, but that was only because it worked out cheaper to do that than paying Maserati for each individual engine. And Maserati weren't worth much. They were turning over a profit, but they were tiny. They didn't cost a lot. So it was the rotary engine that did it. And then Peugeot, because the rotary engine put Citroen in the hands of the government, and the government went, "You there, Peugeot, come and take these over." And Peugeot went, "No," because they wanted because it coincided with the French Prime Minister, who loved the SM, dying because he was ill, he didn't tell anyone, Pompidou. And then the guy who took over was a bit more of a socialist, which means he doesn't like, because Citroen's even, it's weird to think of French and capitalist, but Citroen was the capitalist brand in France in the 70s because it was like they would make the most expensive cars, and that's what the presidents used to drive around in, so they were the wealthy looking car. And Peugeots weren't. And then the guy who came in and replaced Pompidou was a bit more socialist than Thingy. And so it goes on. I get knackered in that. There's a guy here, Richard. Am I talking to myself? Hello, I'm asking question here. How's the Picasso? Well, did I not answer that? So, I mean, you might be talking to yourself. I don't know. I can't see you. Is there anyone else in the room? If you're talking out loud and there's no one else in the room, then you are talking to yourself, unless you're on the phone. Well, am I talking to you now technically? So you probably are talking to yourself. I've got a 208 GTI, says Shane. So many problems, still got it, don't know why, getting better with age. Is that the one with the 1.6 Prince engine? The THP or whatever it is, they have timing chain problems. Tagora, come on then Rich, what's your vehicular guilty pleasure? Something you don't really reveal your love for? Do you know, it's going to be a real stupid thing to say. Well, not stupid, but it's going to be a smart ass answer. I haven't got a guilty pleasure, because I would just admit it. I'd just be like, no, I like those. I mean, because if I was worried what people thought, I wouldn't like bomb around in a BX, would I? Say, because they're not particularly high. Like, you don't get, you're not socially accepted for driving a BX. So, Guilty pleasure would be something that goes against everything I like. So, like, I like cars with engineering, manufacturers with a good history. So a guilty pleasure would be like a superficial car, a car that's just made just to make people think they look cool. And it doesn't do anything like a coupe based on a hatchback or something like that. Like I want to say TT because my father-in-law's got a TT, but like a TT. I can't think of anything. Do you know what? I don't mind Insignias. I think Vauxhall Insignias look alright. Hello? Has everyone gone? Yeah. Maybe Vauxhall Insignias. Who's what? Says Peter the Bricky. Okay. Botress 1990. Stumbled on your channel fixing my BX. Could listen to you for ages. Really? You are the David Attenborough of car fixing. Really not, mate. Please never stop. Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Evening all. Zadster. He's old school. I don't know if he's old, but he's been here a while on the channel. Richard Sutton. Love the Seaside Garage reference. You dropped a few videos ago. Looks like you're pretty close to the 10k. Yeah, quite close. Quite close. Yeah, I like Seaside. That's another one I watch. Seaside Garage. I watch them. He's got an I'm jealous as hell because he's got this XM V6 24 valve in Series 1 V6 24 valve XM. It's just peak XM, and I don't mean peak in a bad way because apparently with the youth today, peak is bad. Like if something happens and you go, "Oh, that's peak," it means you sympathise. This literally means the opposite thing. Peak is like the highest. Whatever, idiots. So yeah, that's like top XM. It's got Duravi steering. It's got the 24 valve PRV, so it's a 90-degree V6, which means it sounds a little bit like an SM, kind of. And yeah, he's got that there, and it's black, and I'm jealous. So, hello Richard, enjoying all your content. Thank you, Ian Fisher, channel member. He has got a light green badge. That means he's been a member for a certain amount of time, but some people have an orange badge. That means they've been a member for longer. So, and eventually, when you get to 1 year, you go full scale up and downer. I can't remember what that looks like because no one's done it yet. I don't think. Jeff Longley agreed I had to do a double take to make sure I clicked the right video. I'm so far behind. I'm sorry. Tim, mate, you don't have to send any money, man. Tim Price has done a super thanks thing. Missed the start. Sorry, contribution for the C6 fund if I keep it. Good luck with the channel. P.S. I want a C6, but I've already got a ridiculous Saab. And I like those Saabs. The NG95. It's one of. Apparently, those are not amazing cars because they were kind of like half finished. But do they look cool? And that's an Insignia, isn't it? Is that an Insignia underneath? Do they look cool or what? That window line is epic. So I really like those. I can't ever see me getting one, but I had a 9.3 years ago, which drove like garbage, really. It was a 2005 9.3 Vector Sport. But I love the look of it. I love the seats. I love the aircon. So much I loved about it. I love the ergonomics. It really worked for me. It just drove like crap. So, but I really like Saab. I think they had a good thing going. Team Brown Banana represent. Sounds like a euphemism. Basic early GS was 1050cc. I thought that might be the case. TVR Cerberas, how bad are they? TVR Cerberas are a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing, and the world is better for them. I do not want to own one. Well, no, I would if I had tons and tons and tons of money and other cars. Because I'm not saying they're unreliable, because that's the cliche and everyone will TVRs are unreliable, and they're really not. And I had this theory about TVRs the other day. TVRs are not unreliable anymore because all the ones that were going to break have broken and been fixed and been put right. So they're getting like it's becoming rarer and rarer to find one that's really troublesome unless it's been fixed by a monkey. Cerberas are the best driving car TVR ever made. That's my opinion. I don't think you drive a better. I think that's peak TVR. I mean, peak in a good way, because the ride. The first thing I mentioned on the TVR is the ride. I always go for ride. The steering, the ride, the driving position, the character of the engine, the V8 particularly, the look of it inside. It looks mental outside, but it's not like really showy. It's not like, hey, everyone look at me, like a McLaren or something like that. It's like, it's just like a long bonnet coupe type thing, but kind of hot roddy, but not. I think they're wonderful cars. I think they're absolute trouble. They're a pig to work on. The parts are horrendously expensive, and they're not as fast as they should be on paper, but they are still bloody fast. So they're huge fun, and they rev to like 7,500 RPM. The it's a flat plane crank V8, so it's like a 2 motorbike engines nailed together basically. It's wonderful. And the chassis rust as well, and all the parts are just ridiculously expensive. All hail Clement. Yes, Ian Fisher. People leave me talking to myself all the time. Oh man. Right, so for those who don't know, David Chandler, who's popped up a few times, is a blind man. He does not have eyes. I think he has eyes. I'm guessing he has eyes, but I don't think they work, or they don't work 100%. But the jokes he comes out with have me properly laughing out loud. Like, people leave me talking to myself all the time. So he's just gabbering away, and they've walked off when he doesn't know. Oh, I love it. I like people who've got an ailment, right, that they joke about, and they let other people joke about it as well. I love that. Obviously, I don't have any. I'm perfect, apart from being fat and short. David Sharp says, the looks and mad stories I get in the BX. One guy told me he conceived his first child in the BX. Great. Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, cheers, thanks for that. I don't get... You do get... If you drive the BX in the UK, the only time you ever hear any people talk to you petrol stations. You go to a petrol station and you're filling up and you see someone coming over towards you and you look round and you think, there's no car in the pump behind me. Oh, he's coming to see me, isn't he? And you're filling up. I used to have one of those. And I'm like, did you? Right, okay. But you haven't anymore, have you? So, I'm not so sure. I don't care. Richard Sutton says, why do you think people remember Citroens and to a degree Peugeots so fondly versus Renaults that seem to be forgotten and disappear? The clubs are very different in terms of activity and following. That's a very interesting question, actually. The Peugeot scene, I think, is bigger, and the Renault scene is bigger for modern cars. So I think like Citroens up until the 80s have got a bit of a thing going on, but then of course all the people who were into them and started the owners clubs and everything, they're all dying off. So the Peugeots got popular in the 80s because it's all down to nostalgia, isn't it? So Peugeots are really popular in the 80s for the hot hatch thing. So if you went to French car show in like 2006 or something like that, like I think I did, Bruntingthorpe, and like the Peugeots would just be everywhere, massive following, and then the Citroens are kind of like the also rans. They're like, oh, there's some there as well, and now it's Renaults because you've got Renault Sport. Renaults are the more popular one now. So I think the reason people remember Citroens more fondly is because they're not so current, because the cars they make in the more recent years haven't been as memorable to people, because the people who like Citroens, the people who love them, the people who started owners clubs and things like that aren't into the newer ones. And it happens today. If you go on the Citroen Car Club forum, and that's not against the Citroen Car Club, but there's just a mix of people on there. And if you go on there, and a guy will rock up and they'll be like, oh, I've just got a C3. And then first, I'm not a proper Citroen. And it's the first thing people say. Now, I don't like them. I don't like modern Citroens much myself. But What is a proper Citroen? Because Michelin owned Citroen when the DS was made. So I know what you're saying. Unless you've got a traction Avant, you haven't got a proper Citroen. Because yes, no, that's not a Citroen. That's a Michelin. But if you get a Saxo, that's not a Citroen. It's a Peugeot. It is a Peugeot, a Saxo, pretty much. But point is, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the clubs. Yeah, so I think the Citroens, people remember them fondly because the cars were so mad and so out there, and then they went through a phase and a period of like people just being a bit of a laughing stock. DSs and CXs were worth buttons in the 80s, and now people are going, actually they were quite good. And it's like, I know I've noticed this when I first used to start blogging about my BX on like websites like Pistonheads and things, way back when, like 2006 or something like that. And you didn't get much, you just get like, oh, yeah, for every comment that was nice, you get something like, oh, rubbish, why would you bother with that? As they say, and they get into a Cavalier. Cavalier is not a rubbish car, but is a BX rubbish if you think a Cavalier is good? No. So, and that's kind of changed. And I think it's changing because the cars themselves are so different and so kind of out there that they're quite memorable. And I think Peugeot, you don't get people remembering Peugeots much before the 80s. You're not going to get them remembering them much after 2000 because they all made rubbish. Renault picked it up. Renault started making good hot hatches after 2000 and before 2000, but they really picked it up after 2000. So I think they won't be the clubs that get forgotten and disappear. I think they'll be the ones that end up more popular as time goes on because of nostalgia, and the people who got Citroens to the forefront of kind of car club culture, they're all dying off. I mean, the DS owners in the Citroen car club are dropping like flies, and there aren't many young people into them, and there's very very few young people in the SM world, and that's not a dodgy sounding thing. I mean, Citroen SMs, and they're going to be up the creek because they aren't passing this on to anyone. There's only very few garages out there that specialise in them. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying why I think that is. But you're right, the clubs are very different in terms of activity and following. Peugeot's, Renault's much more hot hatchy. Citroens, there's more to them than the hot hatch. They made some hot hatches. They were only any good because they were Peugeot based underneath. That's the only reason they've ever been any good, any Citroen hot hatches, because Peugeot were good at it. But the Citroens before that weren't about hot hatches. They went a completely different way of doing things. So the kind of people that like them are different. So if you're more likely to go to a Peugeot. But if you say you were taking a girl for a date or a man, and you're going and they're not into cars, and you go to a meet and you think, oh, I'm gonna go to a car show, and they're like, oh. You're like, no, it'd be fine. If you go to a Renault one, it's going to be and with pop and bang maps and stuff like that, and wheel spins. And if you go to Peugeots, it's going to be a little tiny bit of that, but most of it will be people obsessing over whether you've used the right colour zinc on the strut top nut on your Peugeot 205 and putting mirrors underneath the car. I just do not get that. It's like you can't drive it through a puddle. But they're more likely to be entertained at the Renault one, semi-entertained at the Peugeot one, and then at the Citroen one, they're going to be like, why has that guy got purple hair? Or something like that. So, yeah, because it's a more a broader mix, and it brings all sorts of people in. So, yes, it's a very different activity and following. God, I can't remember what the other questions were now. Sorry, that was a long one. Insignia would be a very guilty secret. How's the Tractiva going? Any content coming up? No, not at the moment. There's reasons why, but yeah, no, not yet. But I do hope they'll get something up. The start video is up for the XM, but I came here. Didn't realise Vauxhall was still going. Not only are Vauxhall still going, guess who owns them? It's not Citroen, it's the people who own Citroen. My dad had an early Insignia as a hire car when I was younger, and all I remember was the ride and handling was so hard it made me travel sick every time I went in it. That's weird because most people would say a soft car would make them travel sick, but I used to get travel sick in Fords. Really bad. Things like Mark V Fiestas, no, Mark V Escorts, Mark III Fiesta, Mark IV Fiesta, that kind of era, that kind of the smell of the plastic and the way they used to ride and everything and the sounds. And I used to get travel sick in them so bad. I don't know why. I mean, I get travel sick really easily in when someone else is driving. That's why I don't often be a passenger, because I just sit there going. But De Glennon says, is that like McLovin? What's your name, De Glennon? You didn't come up. What? You got no first name. It just says De Glennon. You have to have watched that film for that to make sense. Hi, Rich. Which popular classic do you hate, or do you not like at all, and why? There's loads of stuff I don't like. I'm quite grumpy. I don't like posh people and posh cars. So we go to a car show. Anything concours where people just go absolutely mad trying to clean these cars up and like make them look like they don't get used, and it's something like a Ferrari or Aston Martin. I don't really like Aston Martins that much. I'm not massively into them. Yeah, Bentleys. Well, not new ones. I don't. Maybe the older ones have got a bit of history, but yeah, I don't know. Probably. I like look of Spitfires, and then I drove one. That was not good. I don't like Peugeot 604s. Read the SM book for reasons. I learnt to drive in a Vauxhall Victor last time I drove a Vauxhall. That's going back some. XM with Daravi steering was only available left-hand drive. It was, that's true. I had an FD Victor with a 2.3 engine in it. Loved it. The brakes are evil. Well, evil because they don't work, or evil because they're really good. Jasper says, does your wife watch the videos? I imagine if she's really bored she might, but I think she watched some. She might watch the TVR one because she regards the TVR as her car, so she probably thinks I'm going to check out what he's doing on my car. But no one else watches those, so now I've got the tune from the Insignia advert on the brain, from shampoo to shower gel. NG95 is an Ypsilon G2 GM platform like the Insignia A. Good job too for access to bits. Yeah, that's true. Speaking of TVR, can their 6 and 8s actually be sorted so they don't eat themselves? Yeah, they can. As enough time goes on, people can figure out what the weak spots are and get them sorted. So some of the rebuilds on these cars, some of the companies out there are offering 7-year warranties on their rebuilds on the engines. So it's worse when it's my granddad had one of those. People do say that about BXs. In France, the BX is just known as, oh, it's his granddad's car. Like if you go to France and you've got a BX, it's got an image problem. You read Young Timers or KMH or any of the French car mags, and it's just like BXs. Pros: good ride, good handling, quite cheap to run, whatever, interesting. Cons: looks like granddad's car. That's one of the first things they say. Oh, Miss Hubnuts is here. Hello from all at the Hubnut household. So she's on the keyboard then. Ian has not been allowed near the keyboard. David Chandler put a message in and then retracted it. And that means I can't see it anymore, David. I can't see the message. Do you get the joke? Evening all at Chateau Hubnut. Nostalgia isn't what it used to be. David Chandler. Oh, no, scroll down now. And now we've probably got a serious bloody thing on there after I joked. I was sighted until 10 years ago. Right, I feel bad now. Humour gets me through. Just contrast where we are now, light and dark. Means I can always have a beer at the pub as my guide dog is crap at driving. Oh, guide dogs are amazing, aren't they? Aston Martin have really lost the plot recently. I get bored. I'm not interested in Aston Martins at all. They all look the same. So it's just, yeah. It's just money, isn't it? Nah, I've got no interest in them. I prefer, if I had something in that kind of thing, I'd have a Jaguar, what was it, F-Type? Have I worked on rotary engines? Never. I started a Mazda RX-8 once and revved it up and went, oh wow, that feels really smooth. That's all I've done. People look at me funny when I say I don't like hyper or supercars. I think people have given up look at me funny when I say that now. I think hyper supercars. No, I'm not really into them. I just like just cars that get my interest. I mean, there's to a point on the channel where like people won't watch the TVR vids, because I've had it before in the Citroen world where you'll get someone in there who's a bit like not socialist, because I'm probably socialist really, but someone who's like, he doesn't like displays of wealth, and they're quite opinionated people, some of them, and they're just like, well, why have you got a TVR if you don't like people looking at you? And I was like, well, I just like the way they drive. Just drive it where I don't get seen, and I'm fine. And it's kind of like, there are legit reasons for liking stuff, but the videos I don't think get looked at anything like as much, because it's a more niche thing, TVR, isn't it? It's not a world car really. They're only really well known in the UK, and even that's dying off. So yeah, I think there's a bit. I think sports car, well, that's more, TVR is not a supercar, but supercars, hypercars, and to an extent some sports cars. It's kind of like people who don't like football. People always say, how can you tell someone doesn't like football? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Because they do. People who don't like football love to tell people they don't like football. And I think it's a little bit like that with the sports car, supercar thing, but then I'm guilty of that, because I don't know. I think I just get no interest in it. If I see videos come up on YouTube and it's like, yeah, it's just some like posh car. The only ones I like, the only supercars or hypercars that I like the Gordon Murray cars that he's done, the new ones, but I don't like the way they refer to them. Like, there's one called a T50, I think, and a T33, and they just say it's T50, not it's a T50. It is T50. It is T33. You know, with T33 we did that, and it's like, no, with the T33. It's not Clement, is it? It's not. You know, it's an object. But they're a work of art underneath mechanically, and I mean, I could listen. You know, he's a very interesting guy, and he's got a really, really good outlook on things. I'm sure those cars are automotive perfection. And also, I like Koenigsegg's. I'm not really into like flashy hypercar garages and things like that, but Koenigsegg's are like, it's more like art on wheels. It's mad. And they got the Jesko, but what the Gamera, is it? Look that one up. The Gamera is a 4-seater that can take 3 suitcases in the boot and do like 250 mile an hour, and has a 3-cylinder engine with an electric motor. And the engine's got a really funny name. It's called like the Big Tiny Engine or something like that. You should look that one up. It can do like 30 to the gallon or 40 to the gallon or something crazy. The engineering is off the scale. So Koenigsegg's, not Pagani, that's too far. That's going too far. Koenigsegg's just the right blend of like chintz and substance. And they do different things. The Regera, direct drive, has no gearbox. So they're just all these interesting things. So yeah, I'd say that sort of thing. But otherwise, not really. I'll get more interested. If I go to a car show and I see a Montego pull in, I'll get more excited. So is the SM a posh car? The SM is regarded as a posh car, I think, by people who own SMs. As an example, the Citroen Car Club rallies, you rarely get SMs at them now, because the owners either are just collectors, not owners, or because they don't want to associate with plurials, and, well, to be fair, I wouldn't want to do that, but they don't want to associate with Saxos and BXs and riffraff like that. So you don't often get them at Citroen rallies, but they did have an SM meet the other day. That's not dodgy. They did have an SM meet on the weekend, I think it was. And if you wanted to go to the SM meet, and I did ask, for the weekend, you can't just buy a day ticket. You've got to do it for the weekend. It was 2 nights at this hotel, posh hotel, a couple of convoys, parking up in a field, car show stuff. It was 1,200 quid. And I thought, what? It keeps the riffraff out, doesn't it? Riffraff. So yeah, I don't think I fit in the SM world particularly, but there's some really good people in it. Yeah, but I just think, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's ever going to be. I don't think it's ever going to be any. I'm more likely to take the SM down to some chippy meet or something on the seafront, or you know, some breakfast club at a museum, or just some like hub nut social or something like that. You know, so I mean, obviously, I won't take it to a hub nut social because I won't be able to drive by the point it's done. But you know what I mean. I'll be too old. Rob Hall, don't like hypercars. The Veyron is a masterpiece, but wouldn't own one if you paid me to drive it. I don't like the Veyron. I don't like the Bugattis. I think they're just too big. It's too big and too fat. Too much on them. It's like it's just there's no balance. It's just like we want to make the car do everything and be the best car and everything like that. So we're just going to add more stuff to it. Whereas if you look at McLaren F1, it was nothing can be added. There's the goal, and we're not allowed to go outside that. And if you want to add this in, we're going to have to take that out. And it was a balance. Whereas with the Veyron, it was just like add it all on, add it all on, add it all on, more. And I don't like that. So which is a shame because Bugatti back in 30s and that was not like that. So of course Bugatti originally was French, and then the war happened and it became Italian or German. I can't remember. Italian. Yeah, it became Italian. So he can type. Go on, Ian. Don't be scared. I'd love to put an Aston Martin V12 in something. No idea what. No, same. That's just two Mondeo V6s, isn't it, apparently? Have I thought about using the Imp as a test bed for the engine and box in the SM? Doubt it'd fit, but the orientation should be right. It would. It would be right. Yeah, it would be right. It would be right. Yeah. No, I haven't thought of that. I'm probably not going to do that. Not so much of a wealth thing, but they all look the same. Guessing that's Aston Martin. They do. They do all look the same. What is my favourite overall car? Sorry, David Chandler. I was pointing at a screwed up picture of an SM. So, if I ever want to turn the airbags off with the light going out on a BX or Xantia, I have the instructions how to do it. It saved our cars from being scrapped and they passed their MOTs too. I mean, well, you wouldn't have a problem with the BX because they don't have airbags. I'm guessing it's the seatbelt pretensioner wire and loom. Yeah, I've never had that problem. To be honest, the Xantia I've got isn't going to have an airbag. It's going to get taken out. So I'd rather have a key car than a supercar. I would a K car. Yeah, the AZ1, AutoZam AZ1. Yeah, I like them. What K? I like K cars. Honda Beat. I like the Honda Beat. That's quite a funky looking thing. Watched a video where the owner of an AZ1 was saying he took the car to car shows and it got more attention than his Ferrari. Probably did. Rob Star says, evening, did the hula hoops packet in the DS attract the SM's mouse to move into a new home? Well, I think the hula hoops packet is still in the DS because after that video I put it down again and it's still there. The mouse, I think the mouse died because I caught a mouse in a mouse trap. And I like animals, so I bought humane mouse traps. The ones where they go in there and they put their paw on something and start eating it and the door shuts and they go, oh. And they're humane as long as you remember to check the mousetrap. And now I think it might be the opposite of humane. It doesn't look like it had a very humane death. It looked like it had quite a traumatic one. I felt quite bad. I think that might be the one that was in the SM, but I've also found eggs in the SM, not chicken ones. They're like that big. I think whatever was in the SM is gone now. Doesn't smell like there's anything in there anymore. I really should just work on it. Well, there's reasons why I'm not working on it at the moment, but and it's not because I don't want to. So yeah, But no, it didn't. There's enough other food in here for it to do that. I suspect I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that costs 1,200 quid to get. I know, yeah. Some of us are old enough to remember Peugeots when my favourite, the 504, was top of the range here, pre-604, but Citroen stood apart even if the owners were the same. Yeah, I mean, they did. The 504, I mean, Peugeot made good cars, didn't they? They just weren't very exciting cars. So, I mean, I suppose Citroens weren't exciting, were they? They were advanced, technologically impressive. Because something's clever doesn't make it exciting. They were the school nerds, weren't they? Or was that Saab? Saab were the school nerds. Citroen would have been that guy at the back who wouldn't take his coat off and like was very good at it at lessons, but not all of them. One or two of them he'd be horrendous at, and he'd chat back at people, and some people would think he's amazing, and other people would think he's a knobhead, and he would, yeah. And some of the girls would fancy him, and some of them would think he was obnoxious, and no one would know what would happen to him after school. Well, no, after school he sold out. After school he started cutting his hair like normal and wearing normal clothes and trying to fit in. So yeah, that was Citroen when he was at school. Not even Download Festival is 1,200 quid, and that's. Have you seen that thing yesterday, Metallica at Download? People like 14 miles away opened their door and went, "I can hear Metallica." That's how loud it was. That's awesome, isn't it? When I was, who could I hear because when the Isle of Wight festival was on, I could hear it outside my front door. Who was it I could hear? I think it was Kasabian. Kasabian before the fallout. Yeah, I think I could hear Kasabian outside my front door. It was quite cool. I'm not a fan of posh high-class cars either, says De Glennon. I'm an absolute fan of the old bog standard cars that used to be everywhere back in their heyday. I've got a Mark III XR3 and a Peugeot 205 1.1. Cool. No, I'm not mad on the Escorts. Is that an XR3 or an XR3i? An XR3, that's quite rare, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not really massively into the Ford to that era, to be honest. I like the 205. The 205's a cracking car. But I know what you mean. I'm the same sort of thing. Citroen car clubs here in Australia are great. If you turn up in the C3, even the SM people don't mind. That's because they're so rare, I suppose. If any Citroen rocks up, they're like, "Oh, another one, come in." Whereas over here, they're a bit more like, Finally, audio description. Yes, you've only had to wait 2 years, haven't you? Does my SM have 2 distributors, and do I find that perplexing? No, it doesn't have 2 distributors. It has 1 distributor. It has 2 coils. And I can tell you why, but I'm not going to go into detail about it. It's because the engine is imbalanced. The engine is a 90-degree V6, and it means it fires. Well, it's an odd firing engine, so it doesn't fire evenly every stroke. So like on a normal V6, it would fire 120 degrees crankshaft rotation, then 120 degrees rotation, then another fire, then another 120 degrees, then another fire. Because every 120 degrees of crankshaft rotation, the pistons aren't at TDC anymore. They're not there. They're not ready because it's a 90-degree engine. So they have to get it to fire every 90. It goes. The first one is about 90 degrees, then 150, then 90, then 150, and it's a lump. That's why they're lumpy. They're an odd firing engine because they didn't have split pin crankshafts. And the reason it's got 2 coils is because at full chat, an ignition coil from that era couldn't recharge quickly enough to give you a spark again. After it needed, I think it needed 120 degrees of time, kind of like high revs, to recharge enough to deliver a full power spark. So they had to fit 2 coils, so they could alternate. They could take turns. So one was ready when the other one was busy. That's why they have 2 coils. But you can get rid of that. I mean, you can. Some people fit a single coil. I don't know how they do that unless it's a special type of powerful coil. Or you can go distributorless, which I was going to do originally, but now I think I'm going to keep the setup it's got. So. Yeah, I don't find it perplexing. Well, I found it perplexing when it had 2 coils to start with, because I didn't know why. Because it wasn't like it was a Jag, where with a Jag V12, you basically got 2 banks of 6, and it's almost got 2 ECUs, and 2 airflow meters, and it treats them as 2 different banks, 2 different engines. It wasn't like that. Why can't I see you at an SM weekend? No offence, like. What you do in your own time, I'm not going to pass judgment, especially as you are an up and downer. I'm not going to judge you at all. But I don't want to go to your SM weekend, I'm sorry. Thank you. I used humane mouse traps in my old garage. We noticed that the mice I kept finding were getting fatter and fatter. Pretty sure only one particular mouse was coming back for its daily meal. Today I learned I'm a citron. And I wasn't that cool kid at the back of the class, so... why can't I see you in SM? Oh, I don't know where we're gone. My favourite car is either a Mark 1 or Mark 2 Fiesta XR2, or dare I say it because it's known as a hairdresser's car, a Mazda MX-5 or the JDM Unos Roadster, as they had 22 horsepower more. We all like different things. I don't, yeah, Fiesta. No, the Mark 2 Fiesta XR2 looked brilliant. I thought it was a brilliant. I think they nailed the looks of that car, and the sound as well. They had a special, which is funny because the engine, as it turned out, I've discovered later on, the engine was pretty rubbish. Like CVH is not a great engine, but Ford did something to it, and they sounded. They had their own sound, didn't they? They sounded unique, and they looked really good, really, really good. One of the best looking. It's not really a hot hatch, is it? But it's like warmish. Well, could have been hot at the time. A warmish hatch. A Fiesta. The Mark 1 looked quite good. Mark 2 looked brilliant. So I think, yeah, the Mark 2 Fiesta looked great. And white in that moody metallic blue. Red, they looked okay. Black was probably the biggest letdown. But yeah, I would have one just for the looks. I think they look great. And the MX-5, yeah, they're great cars. The MX-5s are really good. JDM, the Unos Roadster, had the limited slip diff, I think. So one of those. We're 15 miles away from the Leeds Festival. You can hear the big headline acts here. Wouldn't mind, but it's never the good ones. Do they ever have any good ones? I used to clean my boss's XR3 when I had my first pub job. Merch suggestion: I'm a Citron t-shirt. No one will get it unless they were here tonight. Gear Ode has just done that with an emoji. Actually had an XR3 4-speed, wow. And he has a 2.8 gear Granada Estate, proper landlord car. I won't go into detail. Proceeds to go into detail. That's me. That wasn't detail. I could rub it on. Rob Hoyle. I listened to Hawkwind live 2 miles away at Stonehenge. Pretty cool. Hubnut is fun. Hubnut has sent some money for Clement. Thank you, Hubnut. This should be enough. I'm sure I could buy something for that. What can I buy for that? I always try and find something. If people are kind enough to donate, I'm trying to find something I can. LHM seals are quite expensive now. The pipe seals, they're like £1 each if you buy them individually. I like everyday affordable cars, says Julian Heap, and most British classic cars from the late 50s onwards to the late 80s. Yeah, I'm not. Do I? British classic car? Yeah, I like some of them. I like MG Magnets. I think they're a lovely looking car. But yeah, I'm with you. I prefer to see normal cars than hypercars. Seaside Garage is here. We've been talking about your XM already, or your mate's XM already. The AX on the wall. That white one. That white AX there. That's the TU cars together. That white AX there. That had done in that picture 245,000 miles. So that's I don't know what that is in kilometers. 245, 340, 340,000, something like that. That car. I'm going to do a video on that car. That car lives. It survives. Someone's got it now. Yeah, I'll do like a 10-15 minute story on that one. How I got it. Got some pictures from way back when I had it. Yeah, how it came to be. It was great. Long and short, it had done 245,000 miles. It went on the rolling road and averaged 2 horsepower more than standard. So there you go. High mileage does not mean low power. Yeah, I loved it. I was gutted to sell it, but then to be honest, I didn't really need it. It was loads of cars. That was 2016, because there's the Imp. So that was not long after the Imp. What colour wheels has the Imp got? Hilda's got black wheels there, so that would have been. So Hilda was working then. Yeah, that would have been 2016, I reckon. September 2016, something like that. Gurfies, my sister had a few Citroens, I think that is, 2CV and a Diane van, but I only had one, a black Visa GT. Nice. A GT with red bumpers and mouldings. So, what do you mean GTI? Because a Visa GTI, that was a rare. I mean, the Visa GT is probably, was that rarer? Maybe it's rarer now, but yeah, they didn't have red trim. The GTI had the red trim. That was the one that had like 205 GTI front struts and things. Rusty Rose Adventures. I was going to message you about that van. I've completely forgot. I suddenly remembered that earlier on today. Yeah, hello. Seaside has appeared. MX-5 or the Mazda Midlife Crisis. It's not really though, is it? Oh, I've caught up with it. No, I haven't caught up with the chat. I thought I had. It's not really a midlife crisis, is it? An MX-5. It's just a normal. You can use them every day. Midlife crisis would be like. A midlife crisis now would be someone middle-aged buying a new hot hatch, a Focus ST. If you're 40 years old, 45 years old, and you buy a Focus ST, that's a midlife crisis. Because MX-5s now, like you see lots of older people driving them. It's not. I would say that's more normal now. I was looking for a standard Mark III Escort. Always like the styling, but happened to stumble across an XR3 with carbs. Had it been a month younger, it would have been an XR3i. NY in the building, says the man called X. Betty, the AU hit 345,000 kilometres today. So that would be... Hang on, no, I'm being... No, because Betty's done 200,000... Right, hang on. 245,000 miles in kilometres is 394,000. That AX has done 394,000 kilometres. And now, I think it's done... I could be wrong, but I think it has now done 403,000 kilometres. Yeah, JDM MX-5 did have the LSD. My sister had one, cracking car, British racing green with tan leather. Yeah, I remember the type. I'm kind of getting old now. Turned 46 the other day. Still love MOT testing and teching though. Do you really? I don't know many MOT testers who love doing it. Enjoy it. Less piston friction in a higher mile car. You're absolutely right, Zadstate. Exactly that. If you've got compression, you've got the right amount of air, the right amount of fuel, and it's been looked after, high mileage car could be faster. Could have more power. If it's been looked after. I just changed from a new R-Bath to an old JDM import Honda. I would probably do the same. João Sarah Oliveira says, hello, hola. Boa noite. Not? I think that says hello, hola. Is that not hello as well? And then, I think, is that good night? Like, as in, are you having a good night? David Chandler's missus works at a wrought iron company. Do I need more steel for the mega jig? Wrought iron? For when I extend it for headlight and seam panel alignment. Oh, don't. It was a pre-GTI GT, probably the wrong bumpers. Oh, okay. I always thought the quad headlight converter, this is Visas we're talking about, quad headlight conversion made them look mean. They do look better with the quad headlights. The Visa is not a handsome machine, but the GTI, almost, it's kind of like the BX, isn't it? The normal BXs at the time didn't really look great. The 16 valve looked pretty good, and the Visa's kind of the same. Is it a midlife crisis to buy a Visa GTI then? I'm 36. No, because that's not really a hot hatch, is it? That's just classic. So no, it's not a midlife crisis. That's a classic car. If you were to go and buy a, I don't know, a Renault Sport Clio or something like that, they don't make them anymore, do they? Something like that, or Focus ST. Well, you're 36. You can't have a midlife crisis. It's not middle-aged. Although I think, to be honest, that Auto Bianchi thing you've got is insane. I think that's amazing. I watched that video the other day. I think it was brilliant. I'd love a Mark 1 MX-5 like my generation's Elan. Yep. Several hundred more to add to Betty tomorrow on our way to the Hub Nut Social. All right, yeah, fine. Yeah, you got your own social. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to that. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I didn't even realise it was on. Well, that one's not near me. I think it's a long way away. You have to do one down here somewhere. That means good evening. Yes, I suppose, yeah. Grim Wriggler, there is an old Alpha, and he spelled Alpha like alpha male, parked outside at the moment, and I'm liking it. 166, yeah, they look good. 166 is a smart looking car. With the first ones, the front end was a bit like that, wasn't it? But yeah, but then somehow the facelift made it a little bit more boring. But I think they're really good from the side and from the back. And I like when you sit in an Alpha 166, the door card is like really low down alongside you. It feels quite sporty. New York, yeah, I know NY stands for New York. I just meant, like, what did you mean when you said something about New York? I'm going to go back. New York in the building. What does that mean? Oh, does it mean you're here? You're announcing yourself. You're here because, right. That's a New York thing. I wouldn't go, Ferrum in the building. Representing Hampshire. Yeah. We're different here, aren't we? A bit of a red sunset here. Looks like warm weather all over the country tomorrow. Ugh. I hate this weather, man. I absolutely got to 26 degrees the other day. I'm done with it already. I hate... Why can't the winter last longer? I hate summer. So that explains why my Tagora has a... Oh, he's sent money. Thank you, Tagora. But why my Tagora has a single coil and the 604 with the same V6 has two, being an earlier design. I hadn't realised that's why two twin coils were used. Learning from the master. Master, see? Yeah, that's why they do it. Yeah, it's because the... If it's not a split pin crank, I'm going into this a bit more in another video, but also not the SM one. It's actually related to one of the other cars. If you watch one of the channels I like, it's called Driving for Answers. He's like a Hungarian guy or Polish or something like that, and he's just like a talking head, and he's telling you how stuff works. He's quite young. He's brilliant. He's really, really good. And he explains how things... He doesn't go nuts. He doesn't like go into jargon and look... Normally people who know a lot of stuff lose you. You get a bit like... trying to keep your eyes open listening to him. And he doesn't. He's sound. And he talks about offbeat V6s, you know, odd firing V6s and why they're like it. And yeah, I've discovered about the twin coil setup after watching that, because I didn't know about odd fire V6s. Because why would I? I've never looked at them before. It's only when I got the SM. I always knew it was a 90-degree V6, but I never actually stopped to think what the implications of that were. Because he says actually in the video the smoothest V6 you could have is actually a 120-degree V6. So kind of like that, but it's pointless because it's almost a flat. So why would you do it? But that's why the SM and the PRVs and other 90-degree V6s sound different to not conventional V6s, is because they're 90 degrees. They sound totally different. And that's when I learned about this twin coil thing. Bosnian. Yes, that's it. Bosnian. He's Bosnian. He's got a Toyota MR2, I think it is, and he explains about the early V6s had shared crank pins, and then later ones had split crank pins. When they figured the split crank pin thing out, they got rid of the odd firing because they could position the crank pins to make the pistons exactly where they need to be. So it worked really well. And I think most of the PRVs, or maybe the later ones, were split crank pin. And most V6s were after they figured that out. But there's a few of them that aren't, like the SM V6 is not split crank pin. It's got 3 big journals on it, and each 2 pistons share a journal. The Buick V6s, the very early odd fire V6. There's a few, and that's where the twin coils come in. It's really interesting. There's different ways of doing it. There's other cars that have odd fire V6s that don't have twin coils, but the SM, because they knew that it was going to be revving past 6,000. I mean, the red line on the SM on the rev counter is at 6.5, so they knew that it would probably rev. It's an Italian engine; it's going to rev. Yeah, so that's why it's got twin coils. But yeah, I'll go into more detail one day. But Visa GTI is like a budget, nicer riding 205 GTI. I've never driven a Visa GTI. I take your word for it. In our family, we owned 2 Visas. One had a fuel economy meter. Really? One was diesel, 4 BXs, 2 Xantias, and Alexia. Alexia is the diagnostic machine. A 2CV, 2 AXs, an AMI 8, 2 GSs, 2 GSAs, and a Mark II C5. Oh, you've ruined it with a C5. You're doing so well. Well, I've never had any of the A series stuff. The A series stuff is like AMI, 2CVs, anything like that. I do like GSs as well. When is there going to be an up and down antisocial? You know, the antisocial, we will all just meet in a field and then just go and like not talk to each other and just stand. I haven't planned anything, I'm afraid, but I did mention earlier on, for those who weren't there, then I'm doing a meet for the Citroen Car Club in July the 15th and 16th. I'm not organising the whole meet, but there's a section of it called BX40 where we're celebrating 40 years of the BX in the UK, and I'm kind of chief organiser. It was my idea, but there are other people involved, so I can't cock it up because there's other people involved. So yeah, but that's not an up and down antisocial at all. That's not an up and down thing whatsoever. I shall be in like organising mode, like you park there, you park there, you park there. So everyone's got to be lined up. I don't want models getting mixed up. You've got diesels, or you've got estates. All the estates go together. All the special editions go together. All the Mark 1s go together. Let's not muck about. I'm going to do this in a spectrum way. I'm going to really, I'm having a lineup, a timeline of cars A through to L reg, and there will be no clashes. It will be perfect. Right, where are we at? God evening, says Burke and Beanar. Yes. Awesome spraying weather then. No, not when it's that hot, because when it's this hot, the paint dries, it comes out with the can, unless you're talking about using a proper spray equipment. If you do it with a rattle can, it dries too quick, so you get a kind of like dodgy finish. That's my excuse anyway. Grumpy Talk, I'm driving past Southampton to get to the Hubnut Social. It's not that far. Where is it then? Past Southampton? So you must be going like left to right, east, west to east, or east to west. 28 here in Kettering tomorrow. Oh god, 28. Ugh. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. I won't appear at an up and down antisocial. That seems to be the right thing to do. Yeah. Yeah. No one turns up. It's just me and my own. Have you seen the Swedish guy who found 4 GSAs in a barn? One of them had headlamp wipers. Ian would kill him for that. Would Ian kill him for that car? No, because Ian is a lover, not a fighter. I don't know. He'd probably get quite excited about it. My 75 Alpha V6, by far the nicest sounding. Yeah, probably. The PSA, the ES9 engine in the Xantia is pretty good. That's pretty good. It was it. Oh, yeah. The ideal V6s are 120 and 180 degrees. And see, people are gonna look at that and go, 180 degrees? Isn't that a boxer? No, because of the firing order. There's a difference between a flat six and a boxer. 90 degrees, like the Jaguar engine. Right, so this is a really interesting thing. I watched a video, Zadster's comment here, interesting one. I watched a video about this the other day, about the 90 degree Jaguar V6, which is a V8 with 2 cylinders blanked over, and it is. And it actually makes sense. I started to watch it thinking like, oh, Jaguar, what are you playing at? And as time went on, I thought, that's actually kind of a good idea, because it means you have all the same coolant hoses, all the same engine mounts, all the same mounts for everything, the same connections to the gearbox. Everything's the same. It's just that the case of the engine doesn't have as many cylinders in it. And I thought that's actually quite, in some ways it's quite penny pinching, but in other ways it's quite clever. But then what they'll do in the future is they'll have 8 cylinders in it, but then if you want the final 2 to be activated, you have to pay a subscription probably. Iron core ignition coils will saturate around 250 sparks a second. Ferrite cores can refresh thousands of times per second without magnetic saturation. You know, when I was talking about people who know a lot and like losing you, I don't know what that means. I don't even know what the core is on the SM. It's one of those things. But you're probably right. MTT Tony. Zadstat, I think when the Mondeo did touring cars, they used a Mazda engine with a split engine rather than the Ford Duratec unit. This, I think, and I could be wrong, I think that is a misconception. I think. And I think the reason it's a misconception, I could be wrong. There were 3 Mondeos, going to be on Super Tourers again now, see. There were 3 Mondeo Super Tourers, 3 eras, if you like. There was the first ones, which were Rouse, Andy Rouse. The second ones were West Surrey Racing, I think. And the third one was Pro Drive. And I think the one that he used in the Andy Rouse cars was out of the Probe. And the Probe had a Mazda engine in it, because it was basically a Mazda, just an ugly one. The second cars weren't competitive for whatever reason. And the third car, which was in the 2000, the Rapid Fit, but with the massive wheels and arches, which was an absolute machine. I mean, they were costing over £1 million per car. Those are the ones that have a V6 engine mounted so low that the drive shaft for the offside, in fact, it might even be both, because it might have been centrally mounted. I can't remember, but the drive shaft passes through the V of the engine. That's how low the engine is, because there's no sump, because it's dry sump. So it sits so low, the drive shaft passes through the V of the engine for weight distribution. The Mondeo Super Tourer from 2000 is an absolute work of art. It is something else, and the noise it makes is blood curdling. But the one you're thinking of, I think, might be the Mark 1 Mondeo, the blue saloon with the white flash up the side, I think. So yeah, they're really good. But I think that had a Mazda-based V6. Sorry about the mix-up, DZs and coil. I'm joking. Don't worry about it. Yes, 2 coils. On an SM. Standing in a field quietly looking at a bonfire sounds perfect. What, like a Clement on fire? Haha, sorry for spelling I am in Spanish. Mate, don't, I'm joking, don't apologise. Christ, any people in foreign countries, which is anywhere that's not here, to me, but not to you. I'm a foreign country to you, but to me, anywhere in foreign countries, they can all speak English better than I can speak their language. Every single one of them, and that goes for the whole country here. We're appalling at learning other countries like languages, cultures. We go to Spain and like demand, just speak louder and more slowly to people. So yeah, don't apologise. Yo, Rich. Oh no, that's you're saying that to me. Sid 3300. Yo, Sid 3300. Socials in Gloucestershire. That's not actually that far then. Gloucestershire. It's sold out anyway, I know. So I'm glad my Saab 93 has great aircon. We'll need it over the weekend. Hang on, so Socials in Gloucester, so that is the southern one in a way, isn't it? Well, it's not anywhere north of Basingstoke is up north, but yeah, that is the southern one, isn't it? Okay, I've missed it. Yeah, Saab 93s do have great aircon. I missed mine. Hubnut is in Cirencester. I learned to drive at age 9 in my dad's GSA. See, my kids are 14. I haven't taught them yet. I probably should, shouldn't I? Damn right, Rich. I don't know what about, but I'm damn right. Thank you, Mark. You're enjoying this live stream. Are you? Christ, it's 2 hours, 20 minutes. 2 hours, 15 minutes, sorry. Oh, yeah, because I messed the first 3 up, didn't I? No, first 5 minutes. Because I had it on unlisted. Give me a Poundland 3-pot over a 6-cylinder. Well, you could have a 6-cylinder, like a Cologne or something like that, and you've got 2 Poundland 3-pots. Oh, number 27's in. Oh my God, did you just equate the sound of the PSA V6 to the Busso? Working on tomato has obviously driven you madder. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Now, when I say Busso, I'm talking about, well, I had a 156 V6, so it wasn't a proper old school Busso, it was the newer one. And the Xantia V6, not a newer one with a 406 or in this C6 or anything like that. That Xantia outside with half an exhaust on it sounds mad. It really does sound good. In fact, I've done a little bit of video somewhere where I'm revving it up. I can't remember where it is, but yeah, there's one on there somewhere. Honestly, it sounds good. Don't knock it till you tried it. They sound good. They got quieter and quieter as time went on, unfortunately. But yeah, I didn't equate it. I didn't say it's the same as a Busso. I said it's not far off. It's pretty good. But yeah, Working on Tomato has we don't mention that name at the moment. Rich, I'm so sorry you're selling the C6. Why, is it your fault? And I'm sorry Clement is much worse than he seemed. You're apologising for a lot. I'm suspicious. What do you know? Yeah, it's Clement is a mess, but then it's one of those things where people who don't really like. You could look at Clement as it arrived, and people will go, "That's a rock box," and then me, who's looked into it in depth underneath, has gone, "Actually, it's not as bad as it looks. It's more just looks like a rock box. Underneath it's actually quite solid." And then when I go and take the roof off and find all this devastation, the worst people will go, "No, I told you it was a rock box." And it's like, no, but you didn't. You just judged it, and you just happened to be right of everything north of the windows. It's more luck than judgment. You didn't know it was a rock box. You just guessed it was a rock box. And these are all the people that I'm going to enjoy when I drive it around, looking the way it does, but having it tidy underneath. These are all the people I'm going to enjoy. I'm going, well, that shouldn't be on the road. So, yeah, I'm debating not MOTing it. It goes against the things I normally do, but part of me thinks that would just add to their spit all over the windscreen when they see it on the road. That's a death trap. And like, you don't know it's a death trap, do you? It could be absolutely mint underneath. So, yeah, but no, Clem. I mean, C6. Yeah, the C6 has got to go. I can't. It's not physically affording to run it. It's just having to cut back on things quite a lot at the moment, and I can't justify £60 a month drive a car 4 miles each way every day when there are some cars I could be paying £30 a year to do that, and it would still do the job. So, and the problem is, for everything the C6 is good at, I don't use it for any of that stuff. I use it at the stuff it's not very good at, like driving 4 miles each way in a housing estate. It's not actually that great at doing that. It's amazing on the road. It's amazing on A roads and fast roads and bashing through counties across the. It's amazing at that. Absolutely brilliant at it. It's awful. Well, it's not awful, but it's not good at what I do. So why am I? Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Number 27, I heard him say that too. Stop ganging up. I had a... Oh God, I'm behind again. I had a 3.2 Busso V6 and an MG KV6 and a ZTT 190. And the KV6 did sound much nicer. Ooh, Braintree Music, right? Fair play to you. You've just taken all the hatred that was on me for suggesting that the PSA V6 was nearly as nice sounding as a Busso, and it's going to be, I don't know what's going to come in the comments underneath here, but I imagine you've been killed. I don't know what's happened, but I'm grateful. I've got massive respect for you. I mean, that is diving on a grenade, isn't it? That is like someone's pulled the pin on a grenade and you've just thrown yourself on it. I've actually had a ZS 180 and a 2.5 156 V6, and from what I hear, the 2.5 is generally considered to sound nicer than the 3.2 because it's a shorter stroke, so it's a bit snappier. And the KV6, the KV6 engine had broken throttle flaps, and I had to bash them out of the inlet manifold, so it sounded very raughty. I wouldn't say that the KV6 sounded as good as the Busso. It did sound nice, but it sounded a bit more just like as you would expect a V6 to sound, whereas the Busso kind of has its own kind of note to it. I love that ZS 180. I mean, it was rubbish, really, but it was a hooligan car. It was like a proper old school, just tire screeching. If you wanted to be a joyrider, joyriders. No, don't joyride anything. But if you were going to, yeah, ZS 180. I just drove it like I stole it everywhere. I just, yeah. Respect of the Mondo touring cars. I did wonder what V6s they were, as they had a 2 litre limit. They did have a 2 litre limit. They still had a 2 litre limit in 2000. They just put different pistons in it. Well, they might put different liners in it as well. But as far as I know, they put different pistons into the 2.5 because obviously big bore, short stroke, that gives you revs, which is what you want in touring cars. Whereas if you have long stroke, narrow bore, you get torque, but not as much engine speed. So yeah, I think the earlier ones, obviously Mazda made 2 litre versions of that V6 anyway. Pretty sure the later ones were Geratech. They were based on the Geratech engine, although ProDrive had given them a thorough going over. But I'm pretty sure they were stroked down to 2 litre. I mean, like Volvo were running the S40, and that had a 2 litre naturally aspirated throttle bodied version of the 20 valve turbo 5-cylinder engine. So, and that sounded good as well. Touring cars used to sound great. They sound like wasps in a bin can now, but they used to sound amazing. Hubnut says, in one of my earliest videos, he said the PSA V6 sounded almost as good as a Busso. Doesn't look as good, mind. Very true. I want a Busso in a Stratos replica. Yeah, that is the right engine for a Stratos replica. Hawk and all that sort of thing. I just started a V6 PSA 24 valve up. Spoiler alert! And it is sounding pretty awesome, to be fair, even though mine is a V5 at times. But that's a V6 PSA 24 valve. So if that's the XM, then that's not the engine we're talking about. That probably sounds a little bit more interesting because it's a 90 degree. Unless you've got something else there, maybe you have. But love the touring V6s. The sound was almost like a manic electric motor in a good way. They are. I'm going to this touring car festival hopefully in Brands Hatch, and a Super Tourer festival, and I want to go down like round the back, round like Dingledale and everything, and just listen to those Mondeos go hooning past because the noise is just insane. Where we at? when the Volvo 850 estate was in touring cars, is it true or myth that a soft toy Labrador was looking out the back window? I never saw one, but that's not to say that it didn't happen, because there wasn't. I mean, it was on grandstand, but you didn't see everything back in those days. You didn't have YouTube and stuff. I know I've seen like press cars or paddock cars, like cars that they have for people to go near. There's one in the Silverstone Museum. Pretty sure that's got one in it. There's a few jokes. If you listen to the 1990s BTCC podcasts, they're good. The Super Touring stories from Super Touring, real good series of podcasts. And they talk about the Volvo in there. They talk about all sorts, like the Alpha with its aero pack that was in the boot, and like them basically saying like the aero didn't actually make that much difference. It was really quick because it had an amazing diff. That's why it was so fast. It had nothing to do with the aero. Because that one guy ripped the aero off it. He ripped the bumper off or something in one of the races, and it was the same power, same lap times pretty much. So, but there was some stuff in there about the Volvo, and their Volvo used the myth. There was something like they used the estate because they couldn't get the aero package to work on the saloon or something like that, and it wasn't true. It was like made up. It was a marketing thing, and I think it was only in there because it was stiffer. I think the estate had a stiffer shell than the saloon, or a lighter shell. Could be lighter because a lot of estate shells are lighter than saloons. So that, I can't remember exactly, but there is a reason why the estate was used. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there was something. They wouldn't put an actual soft toy in there because that's more weight, isn't it? So, Julian B says, "Did you have the Citroen LN and LNA in the UK?" Ian's answered that already because I didn't know. We did, but I didn't know for sure. Yes and yes. I don't know what the I was say I don't know what the LN and the LNA are. I know what they are. They're like Talbot Sambas. Isn't the LN got the air cooled and the LNA's got the water cooled? Something like that. Binary chip. Hello. Oh god, I'm getting left behind again. Our paintball field has some old French things like a Unimog. Isn't that a Mercedes? Oh, like a Unimog, but with a flathead V8 in them. Might be Matras. Oh, what was that? What was that truck manufacturer that the French government made Citroen buy to take on? No, it wasn't the government. Some Citroen bought. I can't remember what they were. There was a manufacturer of commercial vehicles Citroen bought in the 60s, or Michelin bought, and it was a competition thing. It was so that someone couldn't. Burlet, that was it. Burlet. Yeah, it was a competition thing to take them out the market or something like that. But they were quite good trucks before they did, apparently. Vecchi driving lessons would be cool. Pretty hard to drive. It is hard to drive. Find a field and teach your kids to drive in Vecchi. Yeah, it doesn't matter if they smash it into a fence. The fence would stand a chance because it wouldn't be going fast enough to knock it over. So, get an MG ZT with a Mustang V8 in. Those sound amazing. I don't know, I don't know. I think they're a bit boring. I think those engines sound a bit. They sound alright, but I'd probably have the V6 one, because then I could like the estate, and I just use it as a normal car. But I get what you're saying. I just worry that your admiration for Citroens will break your head. Love your videos. If they were gonna break my head, it would have done a long time ago. So, not MOT and classics really gets my blood boiling. Everyone should welcome a second set of eyes checking their work. He's right. Jeff is right, and that's why the only one I haven't had done was Hilda, and that's because I rushed it onto the road to get it to Goodwood. So yeah, and it had done a couple 100 miles since it had a last MOT. It's MOT exempt now. The problem you've got is up until that point, I had an MOT guy I was using who understood the older cars, and he wouldn't like. If you follow an MOT to the letter on an old car, you could fail it pretty easily. But if you be sensible and you look for the safety stuff, the things that actually matter, you can find issues with it. And it was good to have a second set of eyes go over the car, like you say. The problem is testers like that are fewer and further between, and you either get people who just don't look at it at all, or you get people who like fail it on everything. So it is harder. I actually think what they want is, if they're not going to do MOTs on classics, because the MOT is so different now from what, you know, it covers. I mean, like the imp, when the imp goes in for an MOT, there's only like a handful of things you can actually do on it. I think there should be garages out there offering services to inspect classic cars and offer a kind of a check sheet, like, we've inspected this car. The problem you've got, I thought about doing it here, but the problem you've got is that if anyone had a crash or something afterwards, you put yourself on the line, haven't you? And do you earn enough money to put yourself on the line? No. But yeah, some of the cars I've had in that haven't had MOTs are just like, yeah, like ball joints hanging out of them and stuff. Right. I'm trying to keep up here with the people I've not replied to as much. Car sounds are somewhat subjective, very subjective. Personally, I love the old Audi 5 cylinders, yep. But then again, I love the Fiat 2 cylinders. Runs to hide. No need to hide. We will judge you while you're in plain sight. It's fine. Is this going to be another 24-hour stream? It could be, couldn't it? Yeah. It's not going to last much longer, I'm afraid, he says. Can I ask what kind of MPG you get out of your Saab? Oh, got out of it. Well, mine was badged a 1.8, but it was a 2 litre. It was a 1.8 with a little T. Big T is 180 brake. Lowercase t is 150 brake, but it had a Hirsch remap, so it was actually about 185. And that used to do 30, yeah, about 31, 32 only. I mean, that's the kind of car it was. 2 litre petrol turbo. I thought it was alright. I think I'd get, on a run, I'd get like, because it only had 5 speed. If it was capital T, it would have had a 6 speed. On a run, I'd get about 36, something like that. And around town, it was more like 30. I thought it was okay. The trucks are used on this paintball site are Simca Marmons. They sound cool. Never buy a used Citroen with the front chevrons upside down. It's been crashed. So many people do that. I don't know why. Clement had it. Clement's boot. Well, I can see why Clement did. Clement's got filler in the bloody windscreen. But yeah, the badges on the back of that are upside down. And then they got taken off before I got it. So there's just imprints where they were. Have any Vickley racing stories? Cocaine caged E30 M3s. I don't think they actually had the drugs in the cars. I think they were using the drugs to pay for the cars. KV6 throttle flaps are a simple fix. There are solenoids on them. They just need taking off and degumming and putting back on and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I can't remember why at the time. No, mine were broken. It wasn't the solenoids. It was the plastic linkages and the side were all smashed. So apparently that's what they do if they go one step too far. So I got the inlet manifold apart, took a hammer and chisel to it all and put it back together. And the economy was dreadful. And it had no torque below 4,000 revs. But it sounded good. And then after 4,000 revs, it used to wheel spin. So, so which car is top of your list for sending to banger racing hell? For me, Mark 1 Vauxhall Corsa. SUVs. Definitely. Yeah, SUV, any SUV, and I'd watch. Volvo used the estate because they had it was the towing car championship. Oh, some good dad jokes in here tonight, aren't there? Panhard. Well, you're guessing French truck manufacturer. Panhard didn't make trucks, did they? Saviem, that was one, wasn't it? Yeah, but it was Burlet. Yeah, Burlet. Burlet. My neighbour took a Citroen HY shell and fitted it to a Unimog. That's a beast. I like that. I like the sound of that. Hello, Thomas Walster. Sid says he didn't know the ZS came with an auto box and a diesel engine until recently. What, the MG? Yeah, they did. They did diesel versions of the ZR, the ZS, and the ZT. And the auto box. On the ZT, the auto box was a flappy paddle, or had buttons on the steering wheel or something, and the engine was detuned as a result to 180 because the manual version was 190. And then to confuse things, there was also a 160 version, which was the same engine with less power. Why would you do that? The economy was no better. Why would you do that? And they got rid of that and replaced it with a K series, and everyone's going, oh my god, head gasket with a turbo on it. So there's one thing the K series didn't need. It was more pressure on the head gasket. Thomas Wolster says, what's the worst car I've worked on? Worst as in like the most rubbish car, or the car that was the worst to work on? I'm guessing you mean for the worst one to work on, the one that gave the biggest headache. That's the C6. It's an absolute pig. It's horrible to work on. See, otherwise it's not a particular model of car or a particular make of car or anything like that. It's more condition of cars. You get cars that people have bodged, or you get cars that haven't been maintained on time, and so they're just a pig to work on. Like all the bolts are rusted up, and you know, like you go to do one thing, people bring a car in and be like, oh, it's got an exhaust leak, can you sort it out? It turns out it's got 5 exhaust leaks. They've just been ignoring it until now. And then it's got a misfire, and it's got this, that and the other. So it's not really a model thing, it's more cars that aren't looked after. If a car is really well looked after, then I would say, yeah, I would say there's, yeah, only the C6. They're horrible to work on, absolutely horrible to work on. With that engine, it's the worst engine I've worked on. So the engine in the C6 is an absolute. I'm not selling it, am I? Would I like to have a Peugeot 604? I mean, Christ, if someone wants to give me a car, I'll have one. But it would have to be very, very, very likable for me to like it, because of me reading the book about the book I like, the SM book. And Peugeot 604 effectively Peugeot tried to put the C6 in its box with the 604, and eventually failed, but they tried. It was all part of the sort of stamping on Citroen. So I don't like, and the 604 was quite a sort of a dull car by comparison. So something like a CX. So, but I mean, now if I saw one, I'd be like, oh wow, look at that. But yeah, I think I mean, if it's free, yeah, I'll have it. Should have bought Hub Nuts Peugeot to replace the C6. What, the 106? Yeah, nah. No, we've got a Saxo in the family, which I might actually be introducing to the channel. So, yeah, I would say I like the 106. In fact, I would have been quite tempted if things line up, but I've got to be honest, I've got to sell the C6. I don't know if I'll be able to sell it. I don't think anyone's going to want to buy it. So, apart from a Range Rover, this is the banger racing thing. Apart from a Range Rover, I've dropped the lid. Oh no, it's gone. Range Rover Classical Mark 1 and Discovery 1 and 2 banger race every SUV. See, I wouldn't call a Discovery, an early Discovery, an SUV. I'd just call them an off-roader, proper off-roader. Range Rover, I have a bit of a gripe with the Range Rover, because that's the one that caused the SUV issue that we have today. But yeah, I've been them all. Nissan Juke should all be crushed. Hateful things. The only thing I'd say in defence of a Nissan Juke, which is something I never thought I'd say, is at least they're different. It's not boring, is it? I mean, it's boring as a car, but it's not. It's not a boring. What's it? Design. Ugly design. JDM K20 powered minivans don't count, I hope. Well, minivans aren't SUVs. See, minivans, MPVs, fine. Not a, I get that. They make sense. SUVs, get in the sea. I have the beigest Honda interior ever, velvet. It's amazing. Can I see your belly button? Are you a bit weird? Actually, no, you don't need to answer that. I know. No, you have to go on the OnlyFans for that. I would buy it, but only if you agree to service it later. Oh, what, the C6? Service it, yeah. I'll service it. Not a problem. Don't ask me. Well, to be honest, there are people out there who probably better to take a C62 than me, I would think. Because I've only worked on, well, I worked on mine, and another fella bought one down there, which I drove, the petrol one. Did some work on that. I'd have a petrol one over the diesel, but you can't find them. So yeah, I would agree to service it, not fix it, like cam belts and things like that. And I don't want to change the gearbox. It comes with a gearbox if you when I get it fully fixed. But did I tell you I have the only Peugeot 104S right-hand drive Peugeot 104S in the UK? I've got a model of a Peugeot 104S, a 143 model, a little grey one. Yes, Dukes, but especially T-Rocks. I don't know what a T... Oh, a T-Rock. Is that one of those Volkswagen ones? Was this the same Saxo that I redlined? Oh, I'm sure your wife was happy about that. She knows. I put that engine in it. I'm allowed to drive it how I want. That car only survives because of me. Plus, you can redline that car really easily because it's still got a VTR rev counter in it, and the redline starts 1,000 RPM earlier, so it goes well into the redline. It's pretty exciting. I love that car. Great. Speaking of Land Rover products, I had a Range Rover P38 that gave me two of the best days of my life. The day I bought it and the day I finally sold it. Yeah, baby, 7 seats all turn into a bed, proper VTEC noises, make no difference to the speed. I would trust me more than them. Well, you can trust me because I'm honest, because I would just turn around and say, if it was a job I didn't want to do, like you say, well, can you do the cam belt? I'll be like, no, I don't want to. Makes my hands too dirty. Yeah, I would. I've had this before when I've sold cars. People are like, can I bring it back to you? It's tough because if it's a car you love, then you don't really want to see it again. But, and also if it breaks down the line, it gets awkward, which it shouldn't do, but it does. But if I agree to work on it in the future, then and I know that it survives and it's in good hands because whoever's got it is paying to have it worked on. So it kind of goes both ways, but I mean, like, if you asked me to do the cam belt on it or something like that, I couldn't do it fast enough to be able to afford to do it, you know. It would make more sense to take it to places that do them day in, day out. If it was something like, it's got a suspension niggle, can you investigate it and be really thorough and everything? Yeah, I can do that sort of thing. And yeah, things where you have to think outside the box, but normal repairs, like who's the BL Autos is the one people like, which is like Hertfordshire, no, Welling Garden City, I think. Was the 104 the Talbot Samba? I think the Talbot Samba came after the 104, didn't it? Well, the LNA was the same. Pretty sure the 104 was the first one. I think 104 was a cut down saloon, wasn't it? And then, yeah, rebadged as a Talbot Samba, slightly modified, updated. Have I modified the Zara Picasso? No, I've offered to. There are some things I could do to it. I've removed the dad's taxi thing that was in the back window because the kids were embarrassed. But other than that, no. But I did film a video with it yesterday. Chav power for the Saxo, yeah, that's it. Yeah, Samba was a 104 with posh clothing. Yeah, Samba was it was a facelifted one, wasn't it? It had like more modern lights and stuff at the front. And the Visa in between. Visa wasn't, well, yeah, it was in between them, but it wasn't the same, was it? The Visa was a different mechanics, largely. They just want to know if you've got an innie or an outie. No, you don't eat as much as I do and have an outie. I remember those in the Tolbert Chrysler Horizon. Yes. First car with an XUD engine, I think. Something about the Honda SMX that floats my boat. What's the biggest bill you ever gave to a customer, and did they whinge? I don't know. Let's have a look. I should be able to find out. This is real time. I'm on the invoicing system. Find out what the biggest bill I ever did. None of my customers will be watching this, so it'll be fine. The biggest bill I ever did was for £6,987.47. 8 years ago. But, in fairness, that was... Wow, that was for a lot of stuff. That was for a, well, it was part of a TVR chassis refurbishment job. So if I'm looking at that and it's what I think it is, oh, thank God for that. I thought I've massively undercharged someone there, but I hadn't. It was 2 invoices. So yeah, there you go. It wasn't that in total. There was 2. I mean, you wouldn't get it done for that now. God, costs now. In total, it's they haven't just done the chassis because you do so many other things at the same time. We're doing things like painting the fuel tank, like rubbing it down and painting the fuel tank and things like that. But 69872 about 9.5 it cost them all in. But they've got like 4 new CV joints. Overhauling the suspension uprights, wheel bearings all round, full silicon hoses for the engine, new fuel pump relay. Had some GRP work, repair work done on it. Yeah, there's loads, tons of stuff. Doesn't take long to spend that sort of money. I mean, now 9.5 grand. God, that'd get you a service probably. Costs at the moment are ridiculous. I swear I did something in the past about an SUV rant video. I'm sure a lot of people would watch that. But you start getting hate. You start getting hate because then you get the people who own like BMW X5s going, "Oh, mine's really good." It's like, no, it's not. It's too high. Physics. And it's pointless physics as well. It's like you've got a car that is high so it can clear obstacles that you don't clear. Just mine is the Honda Stepwagon. In what car? What, that invoice? It was a TVR. TVR. S, I think it was. Rich, the Discovery 3 has the same diesel V6 engine as you know, but to the cam belts, the body has to come off. Yeah, to do the rear belt, it does. If you, I watched a really good video the other day, actually. It was a German guy, actually quite good humour, which people think, German? Really? No, there was. And he does a video about Land Rovers and why it's like something about it's the worst, is this the worst diesel engine ever made? And it's about the engine in the C6. Only he's doing it from a Land Rover point of view. And like the number of problems they've got, and a lot of it's down to like Ford penny pinching, standard Ford basically. But yeah, there's like the engine in it, the oil in it being so thin. That's worth watching actually. It's quite long, and it's random because his wife films it. Like she's filming him, like stood there for ages just filming him, and then randomly says things that don't like just kind of reiterate what he's saying. Oh, yeah. But it's good, worth watching. Knows his stuff. 7K, that's nearly Harry Metcalf levels of work. Yeah, I don't know what he's got some expensive stuff, hasn't he? So I don't think 7K would probably pay for get an oil filter for one of his cars. If you see 3 wheel nuts, 104, Samba, Visa, Renault, can't remember, they all shared parts. AX? Now realising you should have charged more. Yeah. No, to be fair, I should have charged more. I probably should charge more for a lot of stuff. But at the time that seemed the right thing. So hello my lover. I used to buy bits from you at ECP Millbronx. Wally, what's it? Did you? God, that was... When did I leave your car parts? What car did I have? It's the easiest way to remember what car I had. Would have been about July 2000 and... No. Sorry, I'm just having a life crisis here. I'm trying to think. BX. Oh no, left there. Left there. I would have left there in 2006 sometime. God, that's a long time ago. The Renault 14 used the same 1360cc engine as the BXs and 405. It's just the UPnDOWN. I have GRP repairs to do, not looking forward to it at all. No, I don't really do them. It was the guys next door did it. Susan Buckley says the Tractiva project has gone quiet. Any updates? It has. The Tractiva is something I was doing with the kids as well. So they have to be around for that, and they're not often here. There are things I can do on it, but I don't really like to work on it if they're not here because I feel like a bit mean, like they would perhaps want to be doing some of the stuff. But last time they were here, they weren't that fussed. But the time before that, they really enjoyed it. And one of them asks about going back on it actually, but things are so busy here at the moment that I haven't had a chance to get near it anyway. But I do want to. I don't think it's going to be ready this year. I think it's going to be a next year thing. But I've got more plans on it. Get more ideas. I've been underneath it. I've had it on the ramp, which I hadn't filmed, but I have been underneath it and seen the damage underneath. So it's like, oh, that's quite crunched. It's going to need a bit of work to get that out. Sid says the X5 is just an ugly 5 Series. And he keeps, yes, Jow, yes, he keeps telling people to buy a Toyota. He does, and it's quite funny. I laughed when he said that the first time. 2003-ish. Well, I started working in Euro car parts it would have been about, but somewhere between July and September 2004, because I'd not long bought a BX16 valve. and I stopped working there in 06 or 07. So who are you then? I don't know. One of the garages or something. But how does the SM suspension compare to the DS? Wouldn't know. I haven't driven an SM before. It's the same suspension. It's the same arms. It's on the SM, they're trailing arms on the front, and on the DS they're leading arms, so they're mounted the other way around. But the arms are the same. In theory, an SM could ride like a DS if you had the same spheres. You know, if you had the sphere pressures and everything the same, but I don't know if it would. So it's coming up to 3 hours now. My missus said you won't be home till 10, and I was like, no, I'll be back before then. So I won't be. Yeah, I won't be. I won't be on it much longer. But yeah, no, the SM suspension is the same as the DS. It's just the other way around. Like the front, the back. The back, the suspension is largely the same. The anti-roll bars might be a bit thicker. And the SM has disc brakes on the back. Because the DS has drums on the back. But the arms at the front and the uprights and everything's all the same. It's just mounted the other way around. Now we'll talk about, sounds like Scotty Kilmer. Who's that? We're talking about this German guy. I don't know who Scotty Kilmer is, but no, the German guy is called, can't remember, no idea. But he runs it sounds like he runs a business. Yes, yeah, he runs a Land Rover business. He's good. It's good watching. It's good. It's worth watching that video. American YouTuber, he's a mechanic, always tells people to buy Toyotas because they're reliable. Well, if he's a mechanic, he wouldn't want people to buy reliable cars because that's his income. I take my Citroen C5 Aircross SUV off-road regularly, and it's not even a 4x4. It gets me to lots of fishing lakes and river banks up 1 in 4 muddy slopes. Well, if you use it, and you know, but people buy what they want. There's no right or wrong. You know, if the reason if you buy a car, you buy it because you like it. So, just because I don't like them. I don't like SUVs. I think if you've got something like that, I think to myself, a C5. If you can go off road in that, surely you could have done that in a normal car, but maybe you couldn't. Maybe there are reasons why. I don't know. But just because I don't like them doesn't mean it's right. Actually, it does. But yeah. Yeah, I will go home soon, Mark. Yeah. Just a final question. How can you manage all these projects at the same time? Have you noticed I don't really manage them? Yeah. The problem I've got is that what I do for a living is pretty much manage other people's projects and do all the work. And then what I've got in my own, I don't like saying the word fleet, but in my own fleet of cars is lots of projects. And not much in between. So that's where you end up in a position where you kind of get a bit overrun with it all, and there's an immense amount going on with those at the moment. The imp stitched me a bit. He didn't stitch me, I broke it, didn't I? But the imp Hilda, that one hurt quite a bit because I just got it working, and although it wasn't finished, although it wasn't gonna, you know, it wasn't done, it was usable, and then it died so quickly, and on something so predictable as well that I'd not even considered it for that track day. I had not even considered the one thing that I'd said from day one that car will do one day, and to have that die again was really annoying because I would have been just pottering around in that, going to little shows, going to socials, meeting up. It would be going around all over the place if it weren't for that. The problem is now, I don't know what it is that's broken about it. It does still move around under its own steam, so I haven't taken it apart. I need cars to be able to move around under their own steam at the moment, really. So yeah, I think, oh god, it's clicked over 3 hours now. Yeah, I think that's the one that hurt. That was gutting, that one. The Clement was annoying because Clement I thought would be a little bit of work, well not a little bit, but a bit of work, and then could be moved outside or whatever, and that is so much more work than I thought it was going to be. And then the work that had been done has been done badly, so that's got to be redone. So yeah, that didn't help. So yeah, it's hard to manage it all. It really is. The TVR is the one I'm sort of focused on a bit more now because that needs. That's quite a mechanically simple car, and that needs certain things doing, and when they're done, in theory, that's on the road and working. So. Until it needs the body coming off and the chassis sorting out, which will be about a year or two. But yeah, so LR time. That's it. Yeah, LR. Oh, Jeff, thanks, man. You didn't have to do that. If you're the one who sent me the glove box, you definitely didn't have to do that. Scotty Kilmer is a hack. I wouldn't take any of his advice. Don't know. You can't be like that wizard guy with the DS in. I mean, I'm not going to be too harsh on him because I know they don't have Citroens over there, but like, he says a load of stuff in the videos about that DS he's got, and then people in the comments put him right, and then he says it again in the next video. It's like, do you not read them? Like, are you not learning? Like, one of them got underneath it and put a screwdriver through the boot. Well, that boot's leaking. Just stuck a screwdriver through it, and I'm like, they're meant to have holes in. That's what they didn't even notice it was front wheel drive to start with. I was like, but then I'm not going to be too critical because it's very different probably to what they're used to. But yeah, I don't really watch them much. It's a bit, I could do with a bit more bounce in videos I watch. An apprentice for the gophering. Yeah, the problem with apprentices is they cost money. And they don't really. There's not really much they could do. I can't turn around and go, can you weld that up? Can you make that bracket over there? Can you design and fabricate a bracket? And it's got to be bang on. Otherwise, I can't justify the 2 hours as it took to make it. So, yeah, it's difficult. It's not as before I did this for a living. If I had a mate who was doing this for a living and I described some of the problems doing it, I'd be like, oh, I've got loads of ideas. You should do this. You should do that. Which is what people say to me. And then now, I just sound all negative and like, no, you can't. Like, oh, that doesn't work because of this. That doesn't work because of that. That doesn't work. You know, so, but yeah, it's you know, in some ways it would be good. But I've got kids. I'll have to start employing them to do stuff soon. Get them out of the house, isn't it? No, Jimmy Flip. Jimmy Flip. Just got it. Jimmy Flip. My nan used to say that. Jimmy Flip. Yes. What's his name? Oh, Jimmy Flip. That's what she used to say. She couldn't think of someone's name. Oh, what's his name? What's his name? The fella. Jimmy Flip. Yeah, that's you she's talking about. Dead now. Can't ask her. Night Ricketic 65. Wizard is usually pretty good. I'm not saying he's bad. I just the videos are a little like that. Like like if I'm watching something, I want to have a bit of a chuckle every now and then, and yeah, a bit more like heart in it. It seems a bit like robotic. But yeah, I think the car looks good, and I think they got it for a good price. But it bugs me because I watched that video and he's like however many thousands of views, which means that car has already paid for itself, and he's doing things wrong. I'm like, hang on, that's not even right. So yeah, but then if I was doing something that he's used to doing, Bentleys or whatever, I'd get it all wrong. So Scott, Cold War Motors. Scott's sound. Yeah, nice guy. Yeah, he's. I watch his stuff. More on the Citroens. I do watch some of the American stuff because I just like, and the vintagey, the old really old stuff he does. because I just like his can't think of a less hipster way of saying it, but his vibe. I like his outlook. Um, yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's good. And he's got an SM. Hoovy's Garage used to be okay. I don't even know Hoovy's Garage. I've not really. I don't know. I wouldn't know who that is. I've heard of it, but I've never watched it or anything like that. I don't seem to watch big channels. I seem to watch the small ones. How many projects do you have now? Then buy. Won't ask anything else. Yeah. Of my own. Well, some projects like my BX at home, I've not even touched. So does that count? I suppose it does because it needs work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One of them is an SM. I'm not going to count the van because the van's just going to go. Becky will be going. C6, I'm not going to count because I'm going to get rid of that. Tractor. So like 7 of my own. And then customers' cars. 1, 2, 3, 4. The big projects. 5. Tomato count? It's turning into one, isn't it? It's 5.5. Yeah, tons. Yeah, there's too many. Way too many. Far too many. So, cheers to Gora. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. Josh on the Tube Car Wizard is a kind of spin-off channel from Hoovy's Garage. From what it's worth, I agree. I don't find either very watchable. You know, I don't like judging people on YouTube because I do it now, and it's hard, and especially when people judge you. For everyone who says they like what I do, there'll be people who hate it. So, I just yeah, I've watched some of his stuff on the DS, and I just thought it's a bit the one. Oh, Hoovy must be the guy who turned. Oh, he's the idiot who drove it around the car park on low and then went, oh, the suspension's solid. I was like, yeah, you've taken all the fluid out of it and put it in the tank. Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, it was just proper clickbait. He was like, oh, I got scammed. I was like, you haven't got scammed, knobhead. He hadn't got scammed at all. Yes, I know who you mean. I know exactly who you mean. And then the guy, yeah, the wizard, the fella he took it to look at it on the ramp, ended up buying it off him. Probably because he thought, this is actually quite good condition. What you want about? And it's a rare car, and it was quite cheap, really. So, yes, I know the one you mean. Yeah. Hoovy used to be about cheap stuff, but has gone all Lambos and Ferraris. I can promise you I'll never do that. Never do that. Even if I won the lottery, I'd still be working on the same cars, probably. So, cheers for the evening. Yeah. Oh, yeah, David, yes. You're going to take your guide dog for a walk. Scary going out in the dark, being blind. How do you know it's dark? You don't know it's dark. It might be light. Or does the dog tell you? Bark once for dark, twice for light. Enjoy your walk. Zadster, it seems the more... I'm going in a minute, by the way. Zadster seems the more professional channels get with fancy recording gear and studios, the less entertaining they are. That is because the more professional channels get, the less genuine they're becoming, because they're having to pay for all that recording gear and all the people doing the editing and the team behind them, and they have to film things based on what's popular. Whereas if you've got smaller channels, you can do a thumbnail and it doesn't have to be clickbaity. It doesn't have to be OMG. Well, I've done a couple recently, but it hasn't got to be like OMG, you know. It can just be like just working on a car. And yeah, I think it's less personable because when people get bigger, there's less interaction, and they have to please the sponsors. That's right. Yeah, they have to, yes. So you get made up storylines and things. It just becomes like TV. It just becomes like programs on the telly. So you know you've got, you know, you watch I mean, Christ, I've got that BX Tomato. was on Flipping Bangers. It is an XTV car where they spent ages changing the octopus, and it was a disaster. Well, they ain't changed that one. They might have changed one bit of it, but most of it looks pretty old. So, yeah, it might have just had a leak, and they might have cut and shut a pipe, but to what it looks like, unless it's aged very fast, it doesn't look new. So yeah, it's just people chasing the algorithm, and you get you get people doing whatever they think they need to do to make it popular, because they're stuck in that loop. And I think the people the channels I admire the most are the ones who can make it big ish, and I mean, like, you can live on it full time without being silly. I mean, having said that, I watch Whistling Diesel, which is one of the ones, but then he's not quite the same. He just does crazy stuff because it can be paid for. He's almost taking the mickey, isn't he? Like, he'll just smash something up. We'll get a brand new G-Wagon and just wreck it because the video will pay for it. And it's kind of like a bit punk in a way. So, go home. Yes, I will. Oh, David, you got it. The guide dog tells me. He sent. I should put some money towards Clement or whatever. Thank you. Jeff's saying go home, right? I got another tenner out of that. Right, I am going to go. So yes, thank you everyone who came along. Thank you everyone who's still here. Bloody hell, we're still 89 people still here. What are you all doing? Have you fallen asleep? Guessing you're all asleep. I should do streaming on computer games. That's what I should do. There's money in that. What am I driving home? I'm driving home in past the Picasso. Yay. Where's the lid? Oh, I lost it, didn't I? Nothing better to do. Yeah, I'm guessing not. I'm drawing something in the background. Stream my summer car. Mate, the story I could give you on my summer car, what happened. There is a guy who does it. There's a guy on YouTube who does... He plays my summer car and then just goes with the flow and then makes a story out of it. When I tried doing it, I didn't stream it, obviously. I went to the shops in my summer car and I tried to get my stress to come down because I tried to turn the sauna on and it didn't work. And I put a picture of this on Twitter. I couldn't get the sauna to turn on. I couldn't get it to steam. So but I forgot to turn it off. And so I went out in my boat and I went over the lake to the shops to buy some stuff. And then when I got back in the boat, it was getting quite late, and I got back in the boat and I looked across the side of the lake to where my house was, and it was all smoke. And I thought, oh God. And my house had caught fire and I was absolutely devastated because that was basically my save point. So then I went back over there to see if I could rescue it, but I couldn't because it was already burnt to the ground. So then I tried to kill myself. Oh, that's just demonetized the whole stream. In the game, I tried to. And how did I do that? I tried to walk into the lake, but something went wrong and I couldn't even do that. And yeah, it was a disaster. So I might film that next time. My offspring has a channel with his friend Heavy Metal Entertainment, and the camera kit they have there is crazy expensive. Umbrellas and lights and green screens. I bet it is. I bet it is. Right, okay, I'm going to go. You go home. I'm going to go home. I only live around the corner. It's not a massive problem. Thank you, everybody. And yeah, that's 3 hours, 15 minutes done. I'm not going to have to do another one for a while now. So good to talk to you all. And yeah, see you next time. Be a while yet, but the next video will be, there'll be a Picasso one. And there's a Picasso one, a C6, and some tomato ones left to do over the weekend. So that'll be the next ones. Right, see you later. Bye.